Chapter 1093. A month's time passed quickly, and today was the day of the month. Early in the morning, Murong led the warriors of Xiang village to the outskirts of Gaoyang village. Mi Yang and the others had already gathered outside Gaoyang village, waiting. They all looked at Murong Yu's group with disdain as they approached. Murong Yu immediately noticed that other than Mi Yang, there were a few more supreme-grade powerhouses in Gaoyang village. All of them had surging qi and blood, and their auras suppressed the entire area. Murong Yu only smiled faintly at this. His intuition told him that Mi Yang was up to something. But in front of absolute strength, all schemes were paper tigers that would be smashed by his fist. Gu Kai, you really dare to come here. You really don't know your own strength. Before Murong Yu and the others got close, the #1 warrior of Gaoyang village, Mi Yang, walked out slowly with a cold smile. If it was a month ago, Gu Kai might not have dared to come here after being almost killed by Mi Yang twice in a row. But in this month, he had not only grown stronger, but also more confident. Confidence always came with strength. The stronger one was the stronger one's confidence. Gu Kai was like that. Mi Yang, hand over all your sacred weapons and blood crystals, and I'll spare your life. Otherwise, you'll die. Gu Kai strode out and looked at Mi Yang indifferently. If you defeat me, the sacred weapons and blood crystals will naturally be yours. If you fail, I'll take your life today. Cut the crap and make your move. Gu Kai stood in front of Mi Yang and said faintly. Mi Yang was furious. Gu Kai was someone who had been beaten by him countless times. This time, he had to make the first move. Wasn't this an insult to him? But when he thought of their plan, he sneered inwardly. He knew that after today, Gu Kai and Murong Yu would no longer exist. Since you won't die, I'll fulfill your wish. Mi Yang roared and leaped out. He turned into a phantom and appeared directly in front of Gu Kai. Then, he threw a punch at Gu Kai. Gu Kai sneered. He slid his feet and disappeared from Mi Yang's side in a flash. One move, Gu Kai shouted coldly. Mi Yang was enraged. His figure flickered as he charged forward once again. However, Gu Kai did not counterattack. Instead, he dodged again. 2 moves. Mi Yang was about to explode from anger. A month ago, Gu Kai couldn't even withstand 3 of his moves, even when he tried his best. But today, he couldn't even touch the corner of his clothes after 2 consecutive moves. How did his strength increase so terrifyingly? During this month, Mi Yang's strength had been increasing. It was several times stronger than before. Originally, he thought that even if Gu Kai had improved, he would still be easily killed by him. However, he didn't expect Gu Kai's strength to increase even more than his. 3 moves. Mi Yang, I'll give you 3 moves. Next, I will defeat you in 3 moves. After Gu Kai retreated again, he looked at Mi Yang from afar and said indifferently. His expression was full of disdain. Right now, Gu Kai was confident that he could kill Mi Yang. Under Murong Yu's guidance, he not only cultivated the dragon-elephant prajna art, but also other battle skills. Among them, his movement technique had also improved to a terrifying level. Otherwise, with his previous movement technique, he wouldn't have been able to dodge even one of Mi Yang's punches. During this process, Murong Yu discovered that the few extreme realm powerhouses who were originally in the crowd had disappeared into the crowd. Although Murong Yu saw it, he only sneered. Then, unknowingly, he left a power clone standing in place, and his original body disappeared. Shua, the invisible Murong Yu used his angel's wings and rushed directly into High Sun Village. Spreading out his divine sense, he immediately saw the human clan's quasi-saint, who he had almost killed before, sitting cross-legged in a room. You want to kill me? Murong Yu appeared in front of the quasi-saint. Originally, the human clan's quasi-saint was resting with his eyes closed, but he suddenly heard Murong Yu's voice. He was immediately startled. Immediately, he opened his eyes. The moment he saw Murong Yu, he couldn't help but retreat. Murong Yu's figure flashed, and with a step, he appeared behind him, blocking his path with a smile on his face. If they were in the realm of the gods, Murong Yu definitely wouldn't be this person's opponent. But in the desolate world, this quasi-saint could only run when he saw him. Their cultivation levels were the same, but the difference in physical strength and speed was too great. Hand over all the blood crystals you have, or die. Murong looked at the rank 3 quasi-saint, whose expression had changed, and said indifferently. The rank 3 quasi-saint's expression was very ugly. He, a quasi-saint, was actually threatened by a heaven emperor. If this matter were to spread, how could he still have the face to stay in the realm of the gods? But between his face and his life, which was more important? Murong, don't be so ruthless. I may not be your opponent now, but if we were in the realm of the gods, I could easily kill you. Murong laughed. I have 4 rank 10 quasi-saint in my Shenzhen and almost 20 high-level quasi-saint. Any one of them could easily kill you. Do you really think it's easy to kill me? The rank 3 quasi-saint's expression became even uglier. Do you know why I waited a month before making my move? Murong wasn't afraid that the quasi-saint would escape and sat down on a chair in the room. You knew about my existence a month ago? The rank 3 quasi-saint looked at Murong with a gloomy expression, his eyes flashing. No one knew what he was thinking. Otherwise, do you think that Trash Miyong could comprehend a battle skill on his own? In a month's time, you should have gathered a lot of blood crystals, right? Cut the crap. Take out all the blood crystals. Murong suddenly shouted. The rank 3 quasi-saint was furious, and his killing intent soared. He felt extremely sullen. It turned out that Murong had known about his existence long ago. The only reason he didn't come looking for trouble was to give him time to gather the blood crystals. In this way, Murong could easily obtain a large amount of blood crystals. Take the blood crystals. The rank 3 quasi-saint threw a storage ring to Murong. At the same time, his heart was bleeding. These were the blood crystals he had exchanged for using his battle skill. He had prepared to use them to upgrade his physical body. A few dozen? After Murong received the storage ring, his face turned gloomy. That's all I have. I used up the rest. The rank 3 quasi-saint said angrily. At this point, even though he was extremely angry, he still felt ashamed. He originally had hundreds of blood crystals, but he had wasted dozens of them. After wasting dozens of blood crystals, he didn't see any improvement in his physical body. More than 100 blood crystals? Murong frowned. There were dozens of blood crystals in Sunny Creek Village, but High Sun Village, which was many times larger than Sunny Creek Village, only had so few blood crystals. These are all my blood crystals. Seeing Murong's gaze, the rank 3 quasi-saint was furious. But I don't believe it. The storage ring in Murong's hand disappeared with a whoosh. At the same time, he disappeared on the spot. Boom! The moment Murong disappeared, the rank 3 quasi-saint's heart was enveloped by a strong aura of death. At this moment, the rank 3 quasi-saint was shocked. He knew that Murong wanted to kill him. Therefore, he didn't have time to react and retreated immediately. You can't escape. Murong's cold voice sounded in his ears. Then, the rank 3 quasi-saint felt his physical body being hit by a huge fist containing destructive power. A terrifying power suddenly erupted. Immediately, the rank 3 quasi-saint discovered to his horror that his physical body exploded under the terrifying force. Swoosh! His soul rushed out of the soul space instantly and was about to escape into the distance. As long as his soul wasn't destroyed, he could condense a physical body again in the end. Seeing the rank 3 quasi-saint's soul fleeing into the distance in panic, the corners of Murong's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a hint of disdain. In the desolate world, there was murderous aura everywhere. The rank 3 quasi-saint soul was exposed to the murderous aura. It wouldn't take long for it to be destroyed. However, Su Hao obviously wouldn't let him go. He took a step forward and punched out again. Murong, you will die in the desolate world in the end. The rank 3 quasi-saint let out a scream and curse. Is this how it feels to kill a quasi-saint? After killing a rank 3 quasi-saint with one punch, Murong felt a sense of pleasure in his heart. He had a huge sense of accomplishment. In fact, any heavenly emperor who killed a quasi-saint would feel even more pleasure than Murong Yu. At the same time that Murong Yu killed the rank 3 quasi-saint with one punch outside High Sun Village, Miang was also trampled to the ground by Gu Kai. "Miang, are you willing to submit?" Gu Kai roared, his face full of excitement. In fact, a layer of tears even appeared in his eyes. How many times had he been humiliated under Mi Yang's feet? And now, he had finally turned the tables and stepped on the ground of the past. Mi Yang's face was ashen as he was stepped on by Gu Kai. His eyes were tightly shut, and he didn't say a word. Crack! Gu Kai exerted force with his foot and stomped down. However, he almost crushed all the bones in Mi Yang's body. "Miang, are you willing to submit?" Gu Kai shouted angrily again. Miang still didn't say a word. On the other hand, everyone in High Sun Village was stunned. All of them looked at Miang, who was stepped on the ground in a daze, but for a moment they didn't react. Gu Kai was instantly furious. Terrifying killing intent erupted from his body. He exerted force with his foot, wanting to crush Miang. However, at this moment, a large hand patted him on the shoulder. Gu Kai was furious, and, without even looking, he sent out a punch. He wanted to shatter that big hand. "Gu Kai, enough!" Murong Yu's voice sounded in Gu Kai's ear. Chapter 1094. Big Brother Murong, why didn't you kill Miang for me? Gu Kai stopped his attack and looked at Murong Yu in shock. Could it be that the battle techniques Murong Yu taught him were not for killing enemies? Miang had killed many people in Sunny Creek Village, and Gu Kai hated him greatly. This time, he really wanted to kill him. Sunny Creek Village needs to grow stronger, otherwise it will be lost in the long river of history. If you want to grow stronger, just relying on strength is not enough. You need to win people over with virtue and be good at using resources. Gu Kai, Yin Lai, and the rest looked at Murong Yu in confusion. Miang and these people are all resources. Murong Yu pointed at the few peak stage cultivators he had just thrown to the ground. These were the cultivators that had disappeared into the crowd. These people were originally meant to deal with Murong Yu and were prepared to kill Murong Yu. However, they did not know that they were completely invisible in Murong Yu's eyes. After Murong Yu killed the Type 3 quasi-saint, he had pulled them out from hiding and sealed them. They're all resources. Gu Kai and the others were stunned. They had no idea what Murong Yu was talking about. What were you going to do after defeating Miang? Destroy High Sun Village? Or just kill Miang? Why do you think I taught you to defeat Miang 1 month after today? Why? If it were just to steal their blood crystals, I could have killed them myself. But I did not do that. Gu Kai was stunned and pondered for a while before saying, "Big Brother Murong, you want me to defeat Miang personally and use my strength to suppress and even subdue High Sun Village. That is Big Brother Murong's goal." Although Gu Kai had a simple and honest appearance, he was quick-witted and extremely intelligent. After being reminded by Murong Yu, he immediately reacted. But what should we do with these people? They would never submit to him. Even if he did submit, it wasn't a sincere submission. Gu Kai looked at Murong Yu in confusion as he stomped on Miang. Asterisk crack, crack, crack. Asterisk a few more of Mi Yang's bones were broken, causing him to grit his teeth in anger, wishing he could go on a rampage and kill Gu Kai. Very simple. I'll teach you a method. Murong Yu smiled faintly and sent out 2 beams of light into Gu Kai and Yin Lai's memories. Soul control. After seeing that memory, Gu Kai and Yin Lai were overjoyed. Then, after practicing in their minds, they began to control Mi Yang and the others. "Miang, I know you're not willing to submit to me. Now, you will be my slave." Gu Kai laughed and began to control Mi Yang's soul. However, although Gu Kai had grasped the method to control souls, it was his first time using it. After running around in Mi Yang's soul space for a while, he still couldn't control it. However, Mi Yang's soul was almost torn apart, causing him so much pain that he wanted to die, and was almost rolling on the ground. "Gu Kai, kill me." Miang finally opened his mouth. He was willing to die to become the slave of Miang, someone he had defeated before. "Ha ha! You want to die? I won't let you die." Amidst the laughter, Mi Yang's screams were like that of a pig being slaughtered. It was unknown if Gukai was torturing Miyang on purpose or if he really didn't know how to control souls. After Yin Lai controlled the two peak stage powerhouses, he continued to experiment on Miyang. In the end, when Miyang was about to die from the pain, he finally succeeded in controlling him. Master, after his soul was controlled, Miyang had completely submitted to Gukai. Immediately, he climbed up from the ground and bowed respectfully to Gukai. Gukai laughed heartily again. In the small tribes of the wastelands, the position of the #1 warrior was even higher than the village chief. Thus, after Miyang's soul was controlled by Gukai, the ordinary people of High Sun Village immediately submitted to Shiyang Village. In fact, High Sun Village had merged with many other tribes to reach its current size. Although there were many people, Gukai and the others were too powerful, and they controlled Miyang and a few other peak stage powerhouses. If they were to start a massacre in High Sun Village, all the villagers would be wiped out. Moreover, it was normal for tribes to submit to each other. High Sun Village immediately changed its name to Shiyang Village. With Murong Yu's help, Shiyang Village finally took the first step to expand its territory. At this time, there was still more than a month before the Blood Crystal Mine opened. Gukai and the others were cultivating and organizing High Sun Village. Out of gratitude to Murong Yu, Gukai gathered all the blood crystals of High Sun Village and gave them to Murong Yu. There were hundreds of them. Unfortunately, they were only low-grade blood crystals. However, even if it was only a low-grade blood crystal, it was still extremely precious. At this time, Murong Yu was in seclusion in his room, trying to break through to the next level. The blood crystals were constantly being refined, and the power of the evil spirit was slowly refining Murong Yu's divine body. Although the improvement was very small, it was still an improvement. If I have a large number of blood crystals, I can refine my body to the level of a holy artifact. I believe that's a great feat that no one has ever done before, Murong Yu thought to himself. A body of a holy artifact level. With Murong Yu's current physical body, even the gravity secret zone wouldn't be able to increase the grade of his physical body. Only the blood crystals could do so. However, it had to be high-grade blood crystals and a large number of them. I must get a large number of blood crystals in the blood crystal mine in a month's time. Murong Yu made up his mind and began to comprehend the records of chaotic celestial bodies. As time passed, he comprehended more and more of the records of chaotic celestial bodies. What should I do? Brother Murong hasn't come out yet, and the blood crystal mine will open tomorrow. If we're late, we might not get anything. High Sun Village, no, Creek Village. At this time, Gukai and the others gathered outside Murong Yu's room, looking gloomy. They were looking at Murong Yu's room. We're quite a distance away from the blood crystal mine. I'm afraid we can't get there in a day, and we don't know when Brother Murong will come out. Everyone's expression was gloomy. In the past, both Creek Village and High Sun Village were not strong, and they were bullied in the blood crystal mine, so they could not get many blood crystals. Now, they had many superior grade experts. They wanted to show off their skills in the blood crystal mine, but Murong Yu was still in seclusion. Shall we go first? An expert looked at Gukai and asked. Gukai was now the #1 warrior of Creek Village. He had a very high status. No, Brother Murong said he would go, and he will come out. We can't break our promise to Brother Murong. Don't forget, if it weren't for Brother Murong, we would have been dead, Gukai said in a low voice. Everyone was silent. At worst, we'll go later and snatch the crystals directly. Humph, it was always us who were bullied, the superior grade expert from High Sun Village said coldly. Everyone nodded. Time continued to pass, and a day and night passed. Today was the day the blood crystal mine would open. However, Murong Yu did not wake up. Gukai and the others were still waiting in front of the room where Murong Yu was in seclusion. If Murong Yu did not come out, they would not go to the blood crystal mine. Suddenly, a long roar like a dragon's roar came from Murong Yu's room. The sound was loud and clear, and it spread far and wide. Brother Murong is coming out. Gukai was pleasantly surprised. Before he could finish his sentence, a figure appeared out of thin air in front of them. Who else could it be other than Murong Yu? Brother Murong, you broke through? Although they did not see any changes in Murong Yu, he was excited to come out of seclusion. Gu Kai and the others naturally thought that he had broken through. Murong Yu nodded. He had really broken through. He had successfully comprehended the 6th level of the chaotic celestial record. The reason why there were no changes in his body was that the chaotic celestial record had allowed him to break through from the heavenly emperor realm to the peak Archean god realm. However, he did not have enough power to break through. Therefore, his realm did not change. A few hundred blood crystals had allowed Murong Yu to successfully break through. However, after the breakthrough, it would be even more difficult to comprehend higher realms. He would need even more blood crystals. Is the blood crystal mine open? Murong Yu looked at Gu Kai. Today is the day the mine opens, Gu Kai said hurriedly, sounding anxious. Then what are we waiting for? Are the arrangements in the village done? Seeing Gu Kai nod his head, Murong Yu activated his angelic wings with a thought, covering the sky and earth. Then, before Gu Kai and the others could react, they were swept up by a force. In the next moment, they found themselves in the air. In less than an instant, Sunny Creek Village had disappeared from their sight. So fast, everyone was stunned in an instant. With Murong Yu's speed, it would have taken him a few hours to reach the blood crystal mine, which would have taken him a few days. Brother Murong, you are wasting too much power like this. Let's go on our own, Gu Kai said. In the wasteland, although everyone could fly, they had to fly on the ground. This was because flying consumed several times more power than flying on the ground. If they traveled at full speed, their power would be exhausted very quickly. Once their power was exhausted, it would be useless no matter how strong their bodies were. Without power, how could they attack or escape? Although their cultivation realm was not high, it played a supporting role. Chapter 1095. Luyang Cliff was several domains away from Creeksun Village. Normally, Luyang Cliff was just an ordinary cliff. It was ordinary, and not many people would appear here. But today, hundreds of millions of martial artists were gathered here. Low-grade, middle-grade, high-grade, and supreme-grade experts were everywhere. Because today was the only day in the countless domains that the mine was open. In the desolate world, the use of blood crystals was self-evident. If one wanted to obtain blood crystals, they could only do it in the mine. When Murong Yu brought Gu Kai and the others to the vicinity of Luyang Cliff, he saw hundreds of millions of people. Immediately, he frowned slightly and asked, "How big is this mine? Can it accommodate so many people?" The mine is boundless. It can even be said to be endless. However, because the mine is open for a year every time, we have to come out within a year. Otherwise, we will die inside. Because in history, those who didn't come out of the mine in time never came out in the end. Later generations even saw their bones in the mine. Only a year? Murong Yu's frown deepened. In the desolate world, although he could teleport here, but he didn't know if he could teleport after the mine closed. If he could teleport, this mine would become his back garden again. However, if he couldn't teleport, he only had a year to find blood crystals. Isn't this the warrior Gu Kai from Creeksun Village? Why, you're sending us blood crystals this time? Su Hao and the others had just landed on the ground when strange voices sounded one after another. Hearing this voice, Gu Kai, Yin Lai, and even Mi Yang were furious. The person who came was the warrior of the Wild Wave tribe, Quangong. This person was very strong, a senior supreme grade expert. Furthermore, the Wild Wave tribe was much stronger than village-level tribes like Creeksun Village and High Sun Village. In the past, Gu Kai, Mi Yang, and the others hadn't reached the supreme grade yet, so they had always been bullied by Wild Wave and the others. Because the difference in strength was too great, they could only swallow their anger and let the other party bully them. However, this resentment and hatred had accumulated over time, and Gu Kai and the others had long suppressed their anger. At one point, they wanted to kill Quangong or even the entire Wild Wave tribe. However, there were many supreme grade experts in the Wild Wave tribe. They didn't even have the strength to kill Quangong. Therefore, They only dared to be angry, but didn't dare to say anything. But now, seeing Kuang Tao walk over with a sinister smile, the anger that had been accumulating in Gu Kai's heart for countless years instantly erupted. Apart from the fact that his cultivation realm, Murong Yu, Quangong, Quangong, Quangong. Wild wave, you're courting death. Gu Kai took a few steps forward and looked at Kuang Tao with murderous intent. Quang Quangong was Quangong Quangong. Quangong Quangong Quang of wave. Only now did he discover that Gu Kai had already broken through to the extreme level, the same level as him. However, he was only surprised at the beginning. In his heart, he felt that even if Gu Kai broke through to the supreme rank, there was still a huge gap between them. Because in the Violent Billow tribe, he was also one of the few experts, and had even cultivated cultivation techniques and battle skills. As for Gu Kai, even if he broke through, all he had was brute force. Similarly, there were different levels of the supreme grade. In Kuang Gang's eyes, Gu Kai was naturally the worst kind. Thus, he continued to sneer as he strode towards Gu Kai. Murong Yu didn't move. He just looked at the conflict between the two indifferently, as if it had nothing to do with him. This was because in Murong Yu's eyes, Kuang Gang's physical body was much stronger than Gu Kai's. However, in terms of combat skills and movement techniques, he was definitely no match for Gu Kai. Defeat within 10 moves. Murong Yu took a glance and came to a conclusion. Kuang Gang, die for me. Gu Kai roared. He suddenly took a step forward and appeared in front of Kuang Gang in a flash. Then, he launched a 1,000-army elephant drawing fist at Kuang Gang's chest. Kuang Gang saw a phantom flash in front of him, and then his heart was enveloped by an incomparably strong aura of danger. In an instant, he was greatly shocked. He didn't have time to react at all, but he instinctively retreated. As for Kuang Gang, he was worthy of being called an experienced supreme grade expert. As he retreated, he reacted immediately. A low roar came from his throat. Divine light shone from his hands, and a terrifying aura that could destroy the heavens and earth erupted, smashing towards Gu Kai's divine fist. Boom! The fists of both sides collided in the void, and a loud sound that could shatter one's eardrums erupted. At the moment of impact, the nearby people saw an invisible shockwave spread out in all directions with the place where the two sides collided as the center. Layers of ripples appeared in the void, as if it was about to shatter. Bang! Bang! Both of them were sent flying. After landing on the ground, they continued to retreat. However, Kuang Gang retreated about 10 steps. Gu Kai, on the other hand, retreated more than 10 steps. In terms of strength alone, Gu Kai was no match for Kuang Gang. That's all you got. Today I'll kill you. Kuang Gang was shocked, but on the surface, he shouted angrily. With a stomp of his foot, he turned into a phantom and pounced towards Gu Kai. Gu Kai's face was gloomy. His eyes flashed with killing intent as he also pounced forward. Idiot, use your movement skills and battle skills to kill him. Seeing that Gu Kai still wanted to fight Kuang Gang head-on, Murong Yu frowned slightly and finally shouted coldly. Gu Kai's heart shook violently. Then, he came to his senses and took a step forward, avoiding Kuang Gang's attack by a hair's breadth. Then, his figure spun and appeared behind Kuang Gang. Tricky dragon tail kick. Gu Kai's figure suddenly stopped, and then he used the dragon elephant prajna art. He fiercely kicked out with his leg, and with the dragon elephant vision, he viciously whipped Kuang Gang. Kuang Gang's fist hit the void. Although he reacted in time, his body couldn't help but stagnate. Then, he felt an incomparably dangerous power coming from Gu Kai. Kill! Kuang Gang roared and punched out with both fists to block Gu Kai's attack. However, the moment he punched out, Gu Kai took another step forward. His figure flickered, and he disappeared on the spot, appearing on the other side of Kuang Gang. Ripping lung dragon claw kick. Gu Kai roared in his heart and kicked out the dragon elephant vision. Carrying a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth, it quickly blasted towards Kuang Gang. Kuang Gang was furious and turned around to attack again. However, Gu Kai's figure disappeared again. Bang! After several times, the angry Kwang Gang finally revealed a flaw and was ruthlessly hit in the chest by Gukai's thousand-army elephant drawing fist. This was Kwang Gang's full-strength attack, and it also contained the power of a battle skill. Everyone saw Kwang Gang's entire body being sent flying into the distance. Kwang Gang's tall body arched like a prawn due to the pain. The clothes on his body were all shattered, and his entire chest caved in from the bombardment. Blood spurted out his mouth. At this moment, everyone was stunned, especially the people of the Wild Wave tribe and Sunny Creek Village. Everyone in Sunny Creek Village knew that Gukai was powerful, but they never thought that Gukai would be so powerful that he could easily injure Kwang Gang. The people of the Wild Wave tribe were even more shocked, because they were the same as Kwang Gang, thinking that Gukai and the others were just trash. If the trash had made a comeback. Kwang Gang, die for me. Gukai roared again. In a flash, he had already rushed forward. Divine light flickered on his fist as he appeared beside Kwang Gang and punched down on his head. Once Kwang Gang's head was shattered, his soul would definitely not be able to escape and would be killed by Gukai. How dare you? You're courting death. The people of the Wild Wave tribe finally reacted. One by one, they roared and rushed towards Gukai, wanting to stop him. However, they were already some distance away from Gukai, so how could they stop him in such a hurry? Kwang Gang was about to be killed by Gukai's punch. At this moment, Muronyu took a step forward and teleported to Gukai's side. He stretched out his big hand and grabbed Gukai's fist. Gukai, think about Sunny Creek Village. Muronyu said indifferently when he grabbed Gukai's fist. Gukai spat out a breath, then glared at Kwang Gang, who had already fallen to the ground. After spitting, he turned around and was about to leave. After hearing Murongyu's words, Gukai immediately reacted. Kwang Gang was one of the warriors of the Wild Wave tribe. Defeating him was fine, but if he was killed, the Wild Wave tribe would definitely not let Sunny Creek Village off. With the current strength of Sunny Creek Village, they would not be able to resist the Wild Wave tribe and would be directly wiped out from this world. It was precisely because of this that Gukai suppressed the violent killing intent in his heart and turned around to leave. However, just as Muronyu and Gukai turned around to leave, Kwang Gang, who had fallen to the ground, suddenly shot up. He turned into a blur and pounced behind Gukai. Both of his hands fiercely struck out as he launched a sneak attack on Gukai. How could Gukai have time to dodge such a sudden sneak attack? While everyone was crying out in alarm, Kwang Gang's fist had already struck the back of Gukai's head and was about to kill him. Even Kwang Gang's face revealed a sinister expression. You overestimate yourself. Muronyu sneered and immediately slapped out with his big hand. Pa! An incomparably crisp slap sounded from afar. Under everyone's gaze, Muronyu saw Muronyu ruthlessly slap Kwang Gang's face. At this moment, half of Kwang Gang's face was smashed and caved in. His white teeth spurted out along with large mouthfuls of blood. Chapter 1096. The slap was crisp and resounding. At the same time, when everyone heard the resounding slap, Kwang Gang was sent flying. Kwang Gang was like a kite with a broken string, drawing a beautiful parabola in the air. The blood he spat out scattered in the air, as if it was raining blood. Plop! Kwang Gang finally fell to the ground, and a huge force erupted from his body, creating a huge human-shaped crater on the ground. Kwang Gang's eyes rolled back, and he lost consciousness. Who is this person? He's even stronger than Gukai? Swish! Countless people's gazes gathered on Muronyu. Although Gukai was able to defeat Kwang Gang, it was because he used his movement technique and battle skills to fight with Kwang Gang for a while. However, Muronyu didn't use anything. He only slapped out and directly suppressed Kwang Gang. Originally, when Gukai was about to kill Kwang Gang, the other warriors of the Raging Wave tribe wanted to rush up and save him. However, at this moment, they seemed to be unable to move. They just stood there and looked at Muronyu with incomparably shocked eyes, not daring to take half a step forward. It was too shocking. Kuang Gang was knocked unconscious with a slap. Wouldn't they end up the same way if they went up? This Kuang Gang is too shameless. He provoked him first, and after being suppressed, the other party clearly didn't kill him. But it was a sneak attack, shameless and despicable. The Raging Wave Tribe is nothing more than this. Some people were discussing, and naturally, even the Raging Wave Tribe was on the spot. As for the other members of the Raging Wave Tribe, they only dared to be angry but didn't dare to say anything. Those who dared to criticize the Raging Wave Tribe were all tribes that were on par with the Raging Wave Tribe, or even stronger. These people couldn't afford to offend them. However, although they couldn't afford to offend these people, they couldn't stop their resentment towards Kuang Gang. If it wasn't for this guy's sneak attack, how could the Raging Wave Tribe people say that? Now, the entire Raging Wave Tribe was labeled as shameless and despicable because of Kuang Gang. Is this person a powerhouse from the Sunny Creek village that recently rose? He's actually so strong? I heard that the Sunny Creek village suppressed the High Sun village that was much stronger than them. Could it be because of this person? Also, did you notice? There were many supreme grade experts in Sunny Creek village. Some of them are even experts from High Sun village. Sunny Creek village is going to become stronger. To even dare to suppress the people of the violent Wave Tribe, this person's strength was too terrifying. Don't provoke them in the future. We can recruit people from Xiong village. If it continues to develop like this, Xiong village will gradually annex the nearby tribes and quickly expand. Many people were secretly commenting on Sunny Creek village. Some were saying that they shouldn't provoke Sunny Creek village, while others wanted to recruit Sunny Creek village. Hearing these discussions, Gu Kai and the others felt very satisfied. The grievance of being bullied in the past also dissipated in an instant. Before this, when they appeared here, no one would even look at them. There were only people like Kuang Gang who took things by force. But now, they were treated as equals by many tribes. There was a world of difference between his current status and before. While they were happy, Gu Kai and the others knew that all of this was bestowed upon them by Murong Yu. If it weren't for Murong Yu, they would have died long ago. How could they still have their current status? Therefore, Gu Kai and the others looked at Murong Yu with eyes filled with endless gratitude. Why is the mine opening so slowly this time? No one came to find trouble with Murong Yu and the others. After seeing Murong Yu's strength, if they dared to find trouble with him, wouldn't they be courting death? However, at this time, more and more people came to the outside of the mine, but the blood crystal mine still didn't open. Boom! Just as Gu Kai's voice fell, a sound suddenly came from the incomparably huge cliff. At the same time, Murong Yu saw the incomparably huge cliff violently tremble as well. Then, a huge cave appeared in the sky above the cliff. At the same time, an incomparably foul smell of blood spurted out from the cave, instantly drowning the entire Luyang cliff. Blurg. For a moment, many people with low strength immediately vomited crazily. Although the others didn't vomit, their faces were pale and they looked terrible. Even Murong Yu's face didn't look good. He had no choice but to seal all the pores on his body. Not only did the smell of blood, but it was also extremely foul. Even Murong Yu couldn't bear it. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. However, at the same time as those people vomited, even more people had already soared into the sky, transforming into streaks of light as they charged towards the huge cave, before disappearing within the cave. This cave was obviously the so-called blood crystal mine. Brother Murong, let's go, Gu Kai said quickly and was about to soar into the sky. Murong Yu nodded and waved his hand. A burst of power erupted and wrapped around Gu Kai and the others. Then, his figure flickered and quickly appeared in the cave. Ha, blood crystals! As soon as Murong Yu entered the cave, he heard a burst of laughter. Obviously, someone had obtained blood crystals here. Moreover, there were many of them. However, Murong Yu didn't see many people stopping at the entrance of the cave, nor did anyone try to rob them, because everyone knew that there were more blood crystals in the depths of the mine. Therefore, one by one, they madly rushed into the depths of the mine. It was a waste of time to rob them now. Only when the time was almost a year would these people wantonly rob others of their blood crystals. Looking from the outside, the cave was only a few miles wide and a few miles high. It wasn't. However, as they went deeper into the mine, it became bigger and bigger. Furthermore, after a certain distance, forks appeared one after another. Whoosh! Murong-yu swept Gu-kai and the others into one of the forks. Every fork in a road was in her vein. Whether one could obtain a large amount of blood crystals depended on luck and character. However, during this process, Murong-yu found some blood crystals in a mess, and he used his power to sweep them over. Although they were all low-grade blood crystals, there were dozens of them. In just a short while, there were dozens of blood crystals. One could imagine how terrifying the blood crystals in the blood crystal mine were. In a mine, blood crystals will appear every time we enter. Moreover, the deeper we go, the more blood crystals there are. If we can find a mine that no one has been to before, the blood crystals there will definitely be shocking, Gu-kai explained. Rumble. Suddenly, there was a sound in front of them that sounded like a torrent passing by. Hearing this, Gu-kai and the others' faces changed drastically. Murong-yu frowned slightly. Just as he was about to ask, the torrent in front of them filled the entire mine and rushed toward them. Is this still an underground river? Seeing the torrent that was surging toward them, Murong-yu was shocked. However, he still reacted immediately. He burst out with a powerful force to form a shield outside, firmly enveloping all of them. Rumble. The speed of the torrent was extremely fast. Just as Murong-yu's force enveloped them, it had already rushed in front of them. In an instant, Murong-yu felt as if he was enveloped by a gigantic sacred mountain. Bang! After a loud sound, the chi and blood in his body fluctuated, and he was suddenly sent flying by the impact. In the end, he was submerged in the endless torrent and was swept away by the waves. Humph! Murong-yu's heart was filled with anger as he executed the 10,000 gene elephant step. In an instant, he stood firmly in the mine's underground. No matter how the torrent hit him, he remained unmoved. At this moment, Murong-yu finally had the time to look at the torrent. When he saw it, his face revealed a look of surprise. This was because he saw that the torrent was not so much a torrent, but of fresh blood. This was a torrent formed by the condensation of fresh blood. With a thought, a force was released, and a torrent of water was swept over. Then, a pungent smell of blood wafted over. It's really fresh blood? Murong-yu had a strange look on his face. Why would there be fresh blood in this mine? Brother Murong, there's a torrent of fresh blood in the mine. As for how it formed, we don't know. We actually encountered a torrent of fresh blood. It's really unfortunate. It turned out that a torrent of fresh blood could suddenly appear in the mine at any time. The torrent of fresh blood appeared extremely strange, and there was no sign at all. Moreover, the way it disappeared was very strange. This was because when they were talking, the torrent of fresh blood that was attacking Murong-yu had disappeared. After the torrent of fresh blood had passed, Murong-yu did not even see any traces of the torrent of fresh blood in the mine. What's the situation? Where did the fresh blood come from? And where are they going? A trace of doubt flashed through Murong-yu's mind. Brother Murong, the torrent of fresh blood that we encountered should be the weakest, and it should not be very powerful. Legend has it that there are some extremely terrifying torrents of fresh blood in the depths of the mine. Those torrents could even easily kill a peerless stage expert. Even a divine grade expert would have to flee in panic when he sees them. However, if such a torrent of fresh blood appears, it means that the mine contains a large amount of blood crystals. The more terrifying the torrent of fresh blood is, the higher the grade of the blood crystals. Mr. Murong, the mine that we're in now should have a lot of blood crystals. We've made a fortune, Yen Lai said with a smile. Murong-yu nodded because he had already seen the blood crystals that were shining with a demonic red light in the mine in front of them. Pieces of blood crystals, like stars in the night sky, filled the entire mine. Gu-kai and the rest were overjoyed, and they quickly rushed forward. Don't move. However, just as they were about to collect the blood crystals, an angry roar was heard from behind. Chapter 1097. Get out of my way. Gu Kai and the rest had just entered the mine with the blood crystals. Before they could even pick up a blood crystal, an angry roar came from behind them. Then, a group of dozens of people walked over with a murderous aura. They were led by a young man who was even taller than Gu Kai. Before he even arrived, an incomparably powerful and suffocating aura emanated from his body, suppressing over. When he saw this person, Murong Yu's pupils abruptly shrank. This was because he saw that this person's physical body was the same as his. They were both at the level of a supreme artifact. This was the first time Murong Yu had met someone who was at the same level as him. At that moment, a trace of excitement rose in Murong Yu's heart. This was the excitement of meeting a worthy opponent. Get out of my way. Do you want me to treat you? The leader of the group, whose physical body was at the level of a supreme artifact, looked at Murong Yu and the rest with a frown. His eyes were filled with displeasure. Let's just kill them. Who knows how many blood crystals have been stolen by them? They deserve to die. A young man walked out and said indifferently to Murong Yu and the rest. Gu Kai and the rest were furious. They were the ones who found the blood crystals first. How could these people accuse them of stealing? In this mine, the blood crystals belonged to whoever found them. Did these people think that the mine belonged to them? However, although Gu Kai and the rest were furious, they were not idiots. These dozens of people were all very powerful. They were all supreme-grade experts. The leader of the group was at the level of a supreme artifact realm. He was really powerful. This was an extremely powerful tribe, far more powerful than the Wild Billow tribe. Shouldn't you be the ones who should get out of my way? Murong Yu smiled and took a step forward. He looked at the newcomers calmly. Who do you think you are? We, the Wind Cloud tribe, will do whatever we say. If you don't leave, all of you will stay here. Another young man from the Wind Cloud tribe walked out and looked coldly at Murong Yu. Gu Kai and the rest were shocked. Murong Yu did not know what level of existence the Phonian tribe was, but they did. That so-called Violent Billows tribe was nothing in front of the Wind Cloud tribe. Even in the desolate world, the Wind Cloud tribe was considered a superpower. Legend had it that there were many peerless grades in their tribe. It was even rumored that there was a divine, heavenly sovereign in their tribe. Holy level. That was the most powerful realm in the desolate world. There weren't many of them in the entire desolate world. In an instant, Gu Kai and the others felt the urge to retreat. Murong Yu was strong, but was he a match for the Phonian tribe? Even if he could defeat these people, what about the Wind Cloud tribe? Moreover, Murong Yu was not from this world. He would eventually leave this world. Once he left, what would Gu Kai and the others use to resist the Wind Cloud tribe? Big brother Murong, let's leave. Although Gu Kai was unwilling, he still went forward and said to Murong Yu. He was really unwilling to provoke the Wind Cloud tribe. Get lost. Another youth from the Wind Cloud tribe shouted coldly. Murong Yu's brows slightly wrinkled as a trace of chilling, killing intent flashed between his brows. Kid, I can feel a murderous intent from you. I'm a person who hates trouble the most. In order to prevent you from finding trouble with me in the future, I can only get rid of you today and nip the problem in the bud. All of you can go to hell. The leading youth took a step forward. In a flash, he appeared in front of Murong Yu. Then, he threw a punch at Murong Yu's head. I hate trouble too. So, all of you will die here today. What Wind Cloud tribe? Others might be afraid of you, but I'm not. As he spoke, Murong Yu also threw a punch. Boom! The two divine fists collided violently in the void, erupting with an earth-shattering boom. An extremely terrifying shockwave swept out in all directions from where the two fists collided. Chi! Like a piece of cloth being torn apart, the void around the fist was torn apart. Seeing this, Gu Kai and the people from the Wind Cloud tribe were shocked. With a thought, they quickly retreated. They knew what it meant to have the power to tear apart the void. Moreover, they also knew what it meant to be sucked into the void. Death. Brother Murong is so powerful. Seeing this, Gu Kai's eyes were filled with envy. One day, I'll be able to reach Brother Murong's level. Not long after, Gu Kai growled in his heart and made up his mind. Good kid, you're actually in the peerless stage. I've underestimated you. However, I've yet to kill a peerless expert after reaching the peerless stage. You may be the first person to do so, but you're definitely not the first." Jiang Huang laughed heartily. He took a step forward and threw another punch at Murongyu. "You'll be the first peerless stage expert I've killed." Murongyu growled and took a step forward as well. He threw a punch at Jiang Huang. Peerless stage. Brother Murong was in the peerless stage. Gu Kai and the others were shocked. They knew that Murongyu was powerful, but they always thought that he was only in the peerless stage. A peerless stage expert was considered a top expert in the deserted world. After all, there were too few divine stage experts. There were almost none. Even Brother Murongyu, who is in the peerless stage, is helping us. Gu Kai and the others were excited and touched at the same time. This was because peerless stage experts were usually superior. Not to mention helping Sunny Creek Village, they wouldn't even bother to look at them. Boom! After an earth-shattering explosion, Murongyu's and Jiang Huang's fists collided again. The void was torn apart a little more. On the other hand, Jiang Huang's entire body was shaken to the point of retreating. On the other hand, Murongyu didn't move at all. He was like a sacred mountain standing on the ground. It was obvious who was stronger. Although your cultivation level is high, the gap between us is too big. Since it wasn't easy for you to cultivate, hurry up and scram. After his second attack, Murongyu sent Jiang Huang flying with a single punch. Go to hell. Murongyu's words stopped in Jiang Huang's ears. Jiang Huang felt that Murongyu was insulting him. Hence, he roared and charged forward again. Murongyu shook his head and threw Jiang Huang out with the elephant-pulling fist. However, he didn't show mercy this time. A powerful force gushed out and broke Jiang Huang's arms. The gap was too big. Murongyu shook his head. Although both of them were in the Peerless God realm, there were different grades. However, Murongyu's physical body was the strongest in the Peerless God realm. On the other hand, Jiang Huang had just entered the Peerless God realm. Take all these blood crystals. Take as many as you can, Murongyu said to Gu Kai and the rest, who were stunned. Gu Kai and the rest were overjoyed and quickly went to collect the blood crystals. However, the people of the Fengyan tribe looked at Murongyu with complicated expressions. Jiang Huang glared at Murongyu with a venomous expression. Murongyu frowned when he felt Jiang Huang's gaze. A chilling, murderous intent flashed across his face. The murderous intent was subtle, but Jiang Huang caught it. Suddenly, Jiang Huang's heart was enveloped by an intense aura of death. An intense, murderous intent. Jiang Huang knew that if he did not leave, Murongyu might really kill him. Immediately, he shouted coldly and fled with the people of the Fengyan tribe. Murongyu shook his head. This was not his style. If he was in the realm of the gods, he would definitely kill someone like Jiang Huang with a punch. However, he was restrained here because of Gu Kai and the rest. He could not act freely. Although he was not afraid of the Fengyan tribe, he could kill Jiang Huang. However, once he left, the people of Sunny Creek Village would take revenge. In that case, he would implicate Gu Kai and the rest. Looking at Gu Kai and the rest who were happily collecting the blood crystals, Murongyu made a decision. After a long time, all the blood crystals were collected by Gu Kai and the rest. Big Brother Murong, there are tens of thousands of these blood crystals. As he spoke, Gu Kai handed over the storage ring containing the blood crystals to Murongyu. Tens of thousands of blood crystals. This was definitely an astronomical amount of wealth for Sunny Creek Village. It could nurture many experts in Sunny Creek Village. Murongyu did not take the storage ring. Instead, he said in a deep voice, "Take these blood crystals and go back quickly." Gu Kai and the rest were shocked. They looked at Murongyu in confusion. Tens of thousands of blood crystals is enough for you to develop Sunny Creek Village. In the mine, you are too weak. Moreover, I can't act freely. Gu Kai and the rest immediately understood that they had become Murongyu's burden. Brother Murong, will you return to Sunny Creek Village after a year? Gu Kai asked in a deep voice. Murongyu nodded. You only have a year to think about it. After I leave the blood crystal mine, I will go to Sunny Creek Village immediately. Okay, Then I will wait for Brother Murong in Sunny Creek Village, Gukai said in a deep voice. Then he left with Yanlai and the rest. There was no hesitation or hesitation. Tens of thousands of blood crystals were Murong Yu's burden. No matter what the reason was, it was enough for them to leave the blood crystal mine. Gukai, should we stay and continue to look for more blood crystals? Yanlai asked excitedly on the way. Tens of thousands of blood crystals was the most he had ever seen. Gukai shook his head. With our strength, even if we find more blood crystals, they'll be snatched by others in the end. Let's go back to Sunny Creek Village first. These blood crystals are enough for us to develop. Seeing Gukai and the others disappear from his sight, Murong also moved and quickly flew towards the depths of the mine. Chapter 1098. Several tens of thousands of blood crystals. Even if they were all of the lowest grade, it was still a huge fortune for Murong. Murong estimated that even if the blood crystals did not allow him to break through his cultivation level, they would not allow his body to break through to the divine artifact realm. However, they would definitely make him stronger. Even so, Murong did not want a single blood crystal. It was not that he disdained the blood crystals. In fact, they were his gifts to Sunny Creek Village. He knew that he would be able to obtain more blood crystals in the blood crystal mine. However, what made Murong depressed was that for a long time, he only obtained a few blood crystals here and there. All of them were of the lowest grade, and there were less than 1,000 of them. This made Murong depressed for a long time. Moreover, he met many people in the process. However, there were not many peerless grade experts. There were no divine, heavenly sovereigns at all. The mine was simply too big. Murong went through many forks. There was no end to these forks, and there were always more forks. It was like a maze with no end. If they were not gods and had a photographic memory, they would not have been able to enter the mine. Otherwise, they would not have been able to find their way in. Even so, some people would make signs of the forks in case they could not get out. If they got lost in a mine, they would basically die. Thump, thump, thump. Suddenly, a loud and dull sound came from the front. It was like the sound of a heartbeat, but it was much stronger than a normal heartbeat. Murong stopped, and his expression changed slightly. This was because the frequency of the loud sound was the same as the frequency of his heartbeat. It made his heart beat faster, and it felt like it was going to explode. It was very uncomfortable. Even the Godhead hidden in his heart was shaken, and it felt like it was going to be destroyed. With a thought, Murong's heart stopped beating immediately. Even in the cultivation world, his heart could stop beating. However, a deity's Godhead was located in their heart. Once the heart stopped beating, the Godhead would lose its effect. As a result, Murong's heart stopped beating for a moment, and his spatial Godhead also stopped beating. Fortunately, other than the spatial Godhead, Murong still had the lightning divinity and the primal chaos god lattice. Therefore, the spatial quintessence strike didn't affect him much. What is this loud noise? Murong pondered in his heart as he followed the sound and entered a side path. As soon as he entered the fork, Murong discovered that waves of shock waves were coming from afar, accompanied by loud bangs. The terrifying shock wave shook the void, causing layers of ripples to appear. Murong's face froze, if not for the fact that he had stopped his heart from beating before entering this place. Otherwise, his heart would definitely explode at the first moment. An expert with a peerless grade god artifact level body actually had his heart exploded from a shock wave. If this news spread, a large group of people would laugh themselves to death. However, Murong didn't find it funny, because in this fork he saw a few corpses lying haphazardly in front of him. These people's hearts and even their godheads had all exploded. Apart from that, even their souls had been destroyed. How could his soul be destroyed? A grave expression flashed across Murong's face. Hearts and godheads exploding. This was still within Murong's scope of understanding. But souls? The shockwave here didn't directly resonate with souls. That's right. Although the bodies of the people in the desolate world are very strong, their souls still need to be protected by their power. Once their godhead is destroyed, they won't have any power left. This way, their souls will be completely exposed to the shockwave, and they will be easily killed by the shockwave. Muronyu thought about it and understood. Apart from that, Muronyu also realized that the mine he was in was a few times bigger than the other mines. There must be a reason for this abnormality. This place was different, so there must be something special. Muronyu thought and immediately flew up quickly. Just like that, Muronyu had flown for an unknown number of miles. The deeper he went, the louder the banging sound became. In the end, it even resonated with Murongyu's entire body. On the way, Murongyu saw more corpses. These people either died from the explosion of their hearts, or their godheads, or their entire bodies simply exploded. They were all killed by the loud banging sound. Swoosh! All of a sudden, a shadow shot from the front. It was extremely fast, and in an instant, it was in front of Murongyu. A cold light flashed past Murongyu's eyebrows. He stretched out his hand and grabbed the shadow. Another high-grade blood crystal? A smile appeared on Murongyu's face. He didn't know when it started, but the mine had started spitting out blood crystals of various grades. There were low-grade, middle-grade, and upper-grade blood crystals. Moreover, Murongyu even obtained a few supreme-grade blood crystals. The supreme-grade divine crystals contained terrifying power. Although there were only a few of them, their value had completely surpassed the tens of thousands of low-grade blood crystals that Gukai had obtained. In actual fact, the low-grade divine crystals were almost useless to him. He continued to move forward. He collected a few more divine crystals, and one of them was a supreme-grade divine crystal. Finally, Murongyu's eyes widened, and a huge space appeared in front of him. Within a radius of 100 million miles, besides the fork that Murongyu was at, Murongyu didn't see any other forks. However, in the middle of the space, there was a huge pool of blood that was millions of miles wide. However, other than Murongyu, there were already tens of thousands of people around the pool. All of them were staring at the pool, and no one knew what they were doing. When they saw Murongyu coming over, they only glanced at him indifferently, then focused on the pool of blood again. Swoosh! An illusory figure suddenly shot out from the lake of blood and shot outside. Murongyu finally understood why these people were here. He finally knew where the blood crystals that had shot out had come from. The pool of blood was shooting out blood crystals, and these people were obviously waiting for the blood crystals to come out. Murongyu's heart stirred, and he stretched out his hand. Suddenly, a huge hand formed by energy reached into the pool of blood and grabbed the blood crystal before it could leave the pool. A high-grade blood crystal. When Murongyu caught the blood crystal, he knew the grade of the blood crystal. Therefore, he threw it into the Hichu Luoshu world without even looking at it. When Murongyu made his move, the people who surrounded the pool of blood looked at Murongyu with disdain, as if they were looking at an idiot. No one was fighting for it, and everyone was looking at him like he was an idiot. Murongyu felt that it was strange. Was he acting like an idiot? At this moment, a person's voice cleared his doubts. Idiot, if you consume energy like this, let's see how many divine gems you can get. Murongyu suddenly understood. In the wasteland world, the chi of heaven and earth contained a strong, murderous aura, and it was not suitable to absorb it directly. However, the consumption of energy was a few times higher than in the realm of the gods. Therefore, under normal circumstances, no one would waste energy like Murongyu. Murongyu sneered in his heart. Who knew that his energy would not be depleted? Shio! 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 During this time, a few more blood crystals shot out from the pool of blood. However, Murongyu stretched out his hand and collected all of them into his pouch. More people looked at Murongyu as if he was an idiot, but still, no one tried to snatch them, because they all felt that Murongyu could not continue like this. However, the pool of blood kept shooting out blood crystals. There were so many of them. This idiot's heart is not beating, and his godhead is also sealed. How can he still exert energy? In the end, someone still suspected Murongyu. Maybe his godhead is not in his heart at all, someone answered. If it's not in his heart, then where is it? Are you kidding me? Someone laughed out loud. He didn't think that what that person said was possible. In fact, what they did not know was that the person was telling the truth. Supreme grade divine gems are very rare, and I have never seen divine gems or even saint grade blood crystals. Why can this pool of blood shoot out blood crystals? Is there a large amount of blood crystals buried at the bottom of the pool? If that is the case, can we just go down and collect them? Moronyu looked at the pool of blood and could not help but frown. However, he did not go down rashly, because many people knew that there might be a large amount of blood crystals in the pool of blood, but why did no one go down? There must be great danger in the pool of blood. However, what exactly was the danger in there? Moronyu did not know and wanted to ask these people, right? They all looked at him as if he was an idiot. So why would they tell him the truth? Should I go down and take a look? Moronyu thought to himself. I can still enter Hichu, Luoshu, and teleport between the deserted worlds. If I encounter any danger, I can just enter Hichu Luoshu. You can't get the tiger cub without entering the tiger's den. I only have 1 year. I must try my best to get as many blood crystals as possible. If I stay here, how can I get more blood crystals? After pondering for a long time, Moronyu finally walked toward the pool of blood. What is that idiot going to do? Don't tell me he's going to go down the pool of blood. When they saw Moronyu's actions, everyone's gazes focused on him. In the blood crystal mine, the most dangerous place is the blood lake. You must not go down, or you will die. This has been a legend since ancient times. Moreover, over the countless years, there have always been many reckless people who enter the blood lake, but in the end, no one survived. Many people discussed, and their expressions became even more disdainful. Chapter 1099. Although Moronyu didn't stop talking, his face had turned serious as he listened to the crowd's discussions. Finally, he stopped at the edge of the blood lake. The blood lake was a huge lake formed by the condensation of fresh blood. Standing at the edge of the blood lake, even though Moronyu had closed all the pores on his body, the smell of blood still seeped into his body. Unlike ordinary blood, the smell of blood was not only extremely strong, but also extremely smelly. It also contained a terrifying murderous aura. Ordinary people could not get close to the murderous aura. Otherwise, they would be invaded by the murderous aura. If they did not explode and die, their minds would be changed and they would become a murderous maniac. Moronyu didn't rashly dive into the blood lake. Instead, he stretched out his hand and grabbed at the blood lake. Boom! As he reached out his hand, a huge amount of blood was caught in his hand. Thump, thump, thump. Within the blood, it was beating like a heart. Waves of energy were transmitted continuously, causing Moronyu's hand to tremble. An extremely powerful murderous aura gushed out from the blood and attacked Moronyu's hand along his hand. With a thought, the murderous aura was dispersed by him. Soon after, Moronyu loosened his grip and the blood fell to the ground, disappearing without a trace. It should be fine. Apart from the power and murderous aura, my physical body should be able to withstand it. Moronyu muttered to himself. At the same time, he took out Hichu Luoshu and the yin-yang cauldron. Of course, all of this was done discreetly. This idiot doesn't dare to go down, right? While Moronyu was observing the blood lake, everyone's attention was on him. He has already heard our discussion clearly. If he still dares to go down, he's courting death. Someone said disdainfully. Splash. However, before he could finish his sentence, there was a splash in the blood lake. However, Moronyu had already disappeared from the blood lake. He actually went down? In an instant, everyone was stunned. This idiot really wants to die. Many people sneered in disdain. When do you think he'll be scared out of his wits? Or can we come out alive? Someone immediately asked the person beside him, Aren't you spouting nonsense? It was said that no one who had entered the blood lake had ever come out. Is he an exception? Someone immediately said disdainfully. Bang, bang, bang. While this person was speaking, the blood lake that Moronyu had fallen into was constantly churning with waves of blood. Waves of powerful energy fluctuations were constantly being emitted. What's the situation? Seeing the phenomenon, Everyone looked over and exchanged glances with one another. They were all very curious about what was happening in the Blood Lake. However, not only was their vision obstructed, their spiritual was also unable to probe into the Blood Lake. Therefore, they could only look at the churning Blood Lake, unaware of what was happening. Despite their curiosity, none of them dared to approach the Blood Lake. What did Murong encounter? Just a moment ago, he directly jumped into the Blood Lake. However, before he could sink to the bottom, a strong and dangerous aura quickly approached from the front. When he opened his eyes, he saw an extremely ugly giant monster pouncing at him at high speed. The monster was extremely large, about 100 meters tall. It had two extremely large ears on its head that hung on its face like cattail leaf fans. Its eyes were huge, its nostrils pointed to the sky, and its bloody mouth. Its body was more like a ball with short limbs supporting it. Its tail was extremely long, like an ox's tail, but it was much uglier. It was unknown whether it was because it was in the Blood Lake or because of the monster itself. The monster's body seemed to be covered with some kind of mucus, which looked extremely disgusting. Furthermore, when the monster pounced over, an incomparably foul smell assailed their nostrils. Even if Murong closed his breathing and all the pores on his body, it was useless. When the stench came, Murong even had the urge to faint from the stench. What is this? Murong was instantly enraged. He was not angry because the monster wanted to ambush him, but because the monster was too ugly and disgusting. That was why he was angry. Immediately, he threw out a punch. Suddenly, a giant hand of power condensed in an instant, erupting with a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth. The punch blasted the Blood Lake, causing blood to splatter into the sky. It quickly rushed towards the monster. The monster was extremely fast, but Murong was even faster. Before it could get close, Murong's giant hand of power had already punched the monster's body. Boom! After an earth-shattering explosion, the monster let out a loud, muffled sound and was sent flying. The shock wave formed by the attack instantly swept out in all directions with the point of impact as the center. Instantly, countless amounts of blood were immediately vaporized by the shock wave. However, even more blood was sent flying in all directions by the shock wave. It was also the scene of the Blood Lake surging with tens of thousands of waves. Roar! An incomparably loud roar came from the Blood Lake, and the Blood Lake erupted with blood waves that soared into the sky. When the sound wave came, layers of ripples appeared in the void. Some of the people who were originally closer to the Blood Lake were caught off guard and were sent flying. At the same time, the monster that attacked Murong and was sent flying by Murong's punch appeared in front of everyone. Blood Beast. When they saw the Blood Beast, everyone outside the Blood Lake exclaimed at the same time. Their faces turned pale, and their bodies involuntarily retreated. Legend had it that there was only one kind of monster in the Blood Crystal Mine. That was the Blood Beast. The Blood Beast relied on consuming fresh blood and blood crystals to survive. However, it was extremely ferocious and extremely powerful. Ordinary blood beasts had the strength of an upper grade blood beast. Legend had it that there were even sacred grade blood beasts in the Blood Crystal Mine, and they were extremely powerful. Moreover, these blood beasts liked to eat humans in addition to consuming fresh blood and blood crystals. Usually, when they encountered people, they would attack, kill them, and then devour them. These blood beasts usually hid in the Blood Crystal Mine, but there were definitely some in the Blood Lake. This was also the reason why these people were unwilling to go into the Blood Lake. Otherwise, everyone would think the same as Murong and go straight into the Blood Lake to search for blood crystals. As the blood fiend soared into the sky, Murong's figure also soared into the sky from the Lake of Blood. Then, he flew through the air, crossing an immeasurable distance with a single step and arriving in front of the blood crystal. Go to hell! Murong held the sacred grade artifact Soul Chaser in his hand, and a ball of black divine light burst out. The light from the spear enveloped the entire blood beast and pierced it. Roar! The blood beast let out an earth-shattering roar. Puff! Then, the people outside the blood lake saw thousands of wounds on the huge blood beast body. Streams of oddly smelly blood spurted out from the blood like fountains. Go to hell! Moronyu stepped in the air and appeared above the blood beast. The long spear in his hand expanded in the wind and instantly became like a pillar supporting the sky. Then, Moronyu held the spear with both hands and smashed it down on the blood beast. Bang! The blood beast let out an earth-shattering cry of pain. Then its entire body exploded into two pieces. Rumble! The two pieces of the corpse fell into the blood lake and splashed up a huge wave of blood. However, Moronyu noticed a bewitching blood-red light flashing from the blood fiend's body. Moronyu couldn't care less about his disgust. He immediately stretched out his large hand and grabbed the blood fiend's head. What a huge piece of blood crystal! Near the blood fiend's head, there was a fist-sized blood crystal flickering with a bewitching blood-red glow that attracted Moronyu's attention. It's at least a supreme-grade blood crystal, or even a supreme-grade blood crystal. Moronyu dug out the blood crystal and was overjoyed. He had seen a lot of blood crystals, but they were only the size of a pinky finger. However, this blood crystal was as big as a fist, and its grade was extremely high. This blood beast is at least a supreme-grade blood crystal. Then, the blood crystal in its head that looks like a crystal core should be a supreme-grade blood crystal. Moronyu had some supreme-grade blood crystals, but they were incomparable to the blood crystal in his hand. However, he had never seen a supreme-grade divine crystal before, so he couldn't come to a conclusion. What a huge piece of blood crystal! When they saw the divine crystal in Moronyu's hand, the eyes of many experts outside of the blood lake lit up with greed. However, no one dared to make a move. They knew how ferocious Moronyu was. If they attacked together, they might be able to kill Moronyu. However, the person who attacked first would definitely be killed by Moronyu's rod, like the blood beast. Swoosh! Just as everyone was hesitating whether to attack, Moronyu's body flashed, and he dashed into the blood lake again. In the blood lake, one's vision was greatly obstructed. You could only see a radius of 1 mile. There should be blood crystals in the blood lake, and there should be quite a number of blood fiends. Moronyu sank to the bottom of the blood lake and began to search for blood crystals. Sure enough, his guess was not wrong. Soon, he saw pieces of blood crystals scattered at the bottom of the lake. There were lower grade, middle grade, upper grade, and even supreme grade blood crystals. Regardless of the grade of the blood crystals, Moronyu didn't reject any of them. However, what puzzled Moronyu was that the blood crystals outside were constantly shooting out. How did the blood crystals shoot out? The blood crystals that were scattered at the bottom of the lake seemed to be the ones that no one cared about. There should be a mountain of blood crystals in the blood lake. Moronyu thought to himself and began to speed up his search at the bottom of the lake. At the same time, many experts outside were eager to enter the blood lake to search for blood crystals. In fact, some of the confident experts had already entered the blood lake. However, was there only one blood beast in the blood lake? Was the baleful aura contained in the blood lake something that everyone could resist? Chapter 1100. Thump, thump, thump. As more and more people entered the blood lake, the murderous aura in the blood lake exploded. Before long, the powerhouses could no longer withstand the murderous aura's invasion and exploded into pieces. Their bodies exploded in the blood lake, and their souls were instantly exposed in the blood lake. Even their bodies could not withstand the pressure, what more their souls. Therefore, once their bodies exploded, their souls were also destroyed at the same time. They died immediately. These were all powerhouses of the lower, middle, and upper grades. Without exception, all of them were killed not long after entering the blood lake. Seeing the powerhouses being killed one by one, the remaining people immediately stopped. Only then did they remember that not everyone could enter the blood lake. They were not Moronyu and were not as powerful as Moronyu. Kill! All of a sudden, One of the supreme-grade experts in the Blood Lake roared and rushed to the side of an expert not far from him. He then punched the expert. The powerhouse who was ambushed and the powerhouse who attacked were companions, so he did not expect his companion to ambush him. Therefore, before he could even react, his entire body had already been blasted to death. Kill. After killing this person, the powerhouse attacked another companion. However, this companion had already reacted and retreated when the powerhouse attacked. However, the supreme-grade powerhouse's eyes were bloodshot, and his entire body was filled with murderous aura. He locked onto the powerhouse and charged forward again. He's been attacked by the murderous aura. Kill him. This person had many companions. At this moment, one of his companions finally reacted and charged forward with a few other companions. How could a crazed supreme-grade powerhouse be a match for others of the same level? Not long after, this person was killed. However, this person was not the only one who was attacked by the murderous aura. Most of those who entered the Blood Lake were attacked. Some exploded and died, while some did not die, but became mindless maniacs who only knew how to kill. Some of these people started killing in the Blood Lake, while some returned to the lakeside and started killing. There were many powerhouses on the lakeside. Although the thump-thump sound killed many powerhouses, there were many people who came over, and there were even many people of the lower grades. Faced with a supreme-grade powerhouse, no matter if it was the lower or upper grades, they could not fight back at all. In an instant, countless people were killed, and the scene became chaotic. None of this had anything to do with Muronyu. At this moment, Murongyu's gaze shot toward the center of the Blood Lake. In the process, he saw many blood crystals scattered at the bottom of the lake. Regardless of their grades, Muronyu took all of them. Whoosh! Muronyu, who was charging forward, suddenly stopped because he saw a blood crystal suddenly shot toward him. At the same time, he saw many blood crystals shooting out in all directions. Presumably, the blood crystals seen outside the Blood Lake should have been shot out in this manner. What was in the distance? As his vision was obstructed, Muronyu could not see clearly. However, he was in front of what was most likely the most important part of the Blood Lake. Immediately, he hid his body in the void and continued to move forward in the Blood Lake. He was worried that he would encounter more blood fiends. He was not afraid of ordinary blood fiends, but if they were very powerful and there were many of them, it would be more troublesome. As Muronyu was perfectly in the void, when he walked in the void, the water of the Blood Lake was not affected at all. There were no ripples at all. Blood fiend. Not long after, Muronyu saw a blood fiend lying on the ground. This blood fiend was similar to the blood fiend he killed before. At this moment, it was lying at the bottom of the lake and did not notice Muronyu's arrival. Muronyu resisted the urge to kill it and dig out the blood crystals in its body and continued to move forward. Not long after, he encountered a second blood fiend, then a third, a fourth. It's a nest of blood fiends. Muronyu, who was hiding in the void, was shocked. How far had he walked? He had already encountered more than 10 blood fiends. Each of them had a different level of strength, and he even saw a blood fiend of the supreme level. At the same time, Muronyu also saw his current location. It was an existence similar to a valley. If it was not at the bottom of the lake, the surrounding mountains would be considered high mountains. Muronyu also realized that he had followed the valley all the way here. The blood fiends seemed to be guarding the valley. What's in the deep valley? Muronyu thought to himself as he moved forward quickly. Along the way, he had encountered more than 10 blood fiends. The deeper he went into the valley, the stronger the blood fiends were. In the end, Muronyu even saw blood fiends of the supreme level. There must be something deep in the valley. Muronyu was pleasantly surprised, but his movements became more and more careful. There were so many blood fiends in the valley. If they were alerted, Muronyu would definitely be in trouble. This is a blood crystal? Muronyu suddenly stopped in his tracks, his eyes wide open as he looked ahead. Unlike the Blood Lake, which was filled with blood and severely obstructed his vision, Muronyu's so-called positional vision was not so obstructed. In front of him, there was a humongous blood-red, almost transparent blood crystal that was like a small hill quietly standing on the ground. It was a few miles long and wide, and a few miles tall. Is this really a blood crystal? Murongyu, who was hiding in the void, could not help but exclaim. Under normal circumstances, a blood crystal would not emit such a huge amount of power and killing intent. However, Murongyu could feel a huge amount of pure power and killing intent emitting from the humongous blood crystal. Is it a supreme level or a holy level? Looking at the humongous blood crystal, Murongyu could not help but feel excited. However, in addition to his excitement, he was even more careful in concealing his aura. This was because there were dozens of blood fiends of the supreme level lying beside the humongous blood crystal. They seemed to be absorbing the power and killing intent emitted from the blood crystal to cultivate. In addition to the blood fiends of the supreme level that Murongyu had encountered previously, there were about 40 to 50 supreme level blood fiends in the valley. Once so many demonic beasts were alerted, even Murongyu would have no choice but to flee. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Not far from the humongous blood crystal, pieces of blood crystals were constantly being ejected. However, the blood crystals that were sprayed out into the distance were usually sprayed around the valley. On the way here, Murongyu did not see many blood crystals on the ground. They must have been eaten by the blood fiends. The blood crystals were ejected from a humongous deep hole. Murongyu went closer and saw that the deep hole was like a spring. A huge amount of blood was gushing out from it to replenish the blood lake. The blood crystals were mixed with the blood and sprayed out. According to Murongyu's observation, the blood that gushed out was like a huge river. However, the blood lake did not flow to other rivers. Why did the blood lake not increase its water level? Could it be the blood torrent that appeared out of nowhere? Murongyu thought to himself. What was blood gushing out like a spring? It was only when Murongyu saw the deep hole that he finally understood the meaning of those words. Could it be that the blood crystals are ejected from the spring? What's in the depths of the spring? Could it really be the power of the blood crystals? Murongyu had the urge to go in and take a look. However, before he could get close to the mouth of the spring, an extremely powerful force pushed against his body, almost pushing him out of the void. Murongyu was slightly startled. Just a moment ago, he'd almost fallen out of the void. Once he appeared here, the blood fiends would definitely notice him. Can I really not go in? Murongyu tried a few times, but before he could get close, he was pushed away by the strong force. This made him a little depressed. After trying a few more times, he could only fix his gaze on the blood crystal that was as big as a small mountain. I wonder if Hichu Luoshu can collect this blood crystal immediately? Murongyu stood above the blood crystal and looked down at it. He was deep in thought. If there were no special circumstances, Hichu Luoshu could definitely collect it. However, if it was like the spring, he only had a split second to collect it. Otherwise, the blood fiends would be alerted. Let's give it a try. Murongyu decided to give it a try in the end. If he could get this blood crystal, it would be better than seeing dozens of ordinary blood crystals. Hichu, I'm counting on you. Murongyu had an idea and immediately took out Hichu Luoshu. As soon as Hichu Luoshu appeared, it expanded rapidly. In an instant, it grew to the size of a small mountain. Then, under the joint control of Murongyu and Hichu, it shrouded the blood crystal with a swoosh. The moment Hichu Luoshu appeared, dozens of blood fiends in the divine level surrounding the huge crystal were alerted. They opened their eyes immediately and stretched out their huge claws to attack Hichu Luoshu. Hichu Luoshu, collect, collect, collect. Murongyu roared in his heart. He even started to burn his chaotic divine meridians to increase the power of Hichu Luoshu to the maximum. A huge suction force instantly enveloped the huge blood crystal. At the same time, Hichu Luoshu covered the blood crystal. Rumble. The blood crystal trembled violently. At this moment, dozens of blood fiends in the divine level were about to attack Hichu Luoshu. Chapter 1101. Whoosh! Under the full control of Murong Yu and He Too. The moment the He Too and the Book of the Luo covered the hill-sized blood crystal, it was sucked into the world of the He Too and the Book of the Luo. Immediately, the Hichu Luo Shu shrunk rapidly. However, even though Murong Yu was extremely fast, the attacks of the peerless blood fiends that were near the blood crystal were not slow either. As the Hichu Luo Shu shrunk rapidly, their attacks came down rapidly. Bang! 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 Terrifying forces bombarded the Hichu Luo Shu continuously, causing the space around it to shatter. The terrifying forces bombarded the Hichu Luo Shu. Fortunately, the Hichu Luo Shu's grade was extremely high and was not something that the peerless blood fiends could destroy. However, the damage from the attacks continued to hit Murong Yu's body. Puff! Murong Yu's body was forced out of the void and blood spurted out of his mouth. Roar! When they noticed Murong Yu appearing out of thin air, a few of the blood fiends immediately launched their strongest attacks at Murong Yu. Murong Yu's heart was filled with shock. The life force in his body frantically cleansed his body, repairing his injuries. At the same time, he spread his angel's wings and rushed towards the sky above the blood lake. Dozens of peerless blood fiends. He was no match for them. When Murong Yu rushed towards the sky, the Hichu Luo Shu had turned into an almost invisible particle. It pierced through the void and rushed into Murong Yu's body. At this moment, Murong Yu was about to enter the Hichu Luo Shu world. However, after thinking about it, he decided against it. The space here was shattered by the attacks of the blood fiends. It would be a tragedy if he rushed into the turbulent space. Roar! 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 The blood fiends in the entire valley and even the entire blood lake were alarmed. They let out earth-shattering roars and rushed towards Murong Yu at the same time. They had no intention of fighting. They just rushed towards the sky at their fastest speed. Because this was the deserted world, although the blood fiends had strong bodies, their cultivation was not very high. Hence, long-range attacks were useless against Murong Yu. As such, the blood fiends could only soar into the air and chase after Murong Yu. Whoosh! Murong Yu broke through the air, causing the blood waves to soar tens of thousands of feet high. Following closely behind him were the dozens of unparalleled blood fiends and even more blood fiends. What's going on? When they saw this scene, the people outside and in the blood lake were stunned. They did not know what had happened. In fact, when the countless blood fiends roared, these people were already scared out of their wits. At this moment, all of them were so scared that their faces were drained of blood. In fact, some timid ones even spread their bodies and quickly rushed toward the back. Run! The blood fiends have gone crazy. While flying, Murong Yu suddenly shouted. Then, his angel wings flapped rapidly, and he immediately turned into a stream of light and flew towards the fork he came from. That huge blood crystal was obviously extremely important to the blood fiends in the blood lake, because Su Hao discovered that there were already more than 100 blood fiends chasing after him. These blood fiends were all extremely violent, their murderous auras soaring into the sky. The moment they appeared, they no longer just chased after Murong Yu. Instead, they locked onto the others and pounced toward them, although he didn't have a good impression of these people. But these blood fiends were lured out by him after all. If all these people were killed, it would be his sin. Thus, as he fled, he roared loudly to warn the others. As for whether these people escaped or not, or whether they could escape, it was none of his business. In fact, when these blood fiends went berserk, many people had already escaped. However, there were more people who hadn't reacted yet. Moreover, those blood fiends didn't hesitate to consume their strength to fly. In an instant, countless people were killed. Before these people died, they couldn't help but curse. Murong Yu, you idiot! Of course, the premise was that they knew Murong Yu's name. Murong Yu's speed was extremely fast, especially after leaving the blood lake. With a flap of his angel wings, he rushed into the mine. Then, with another flap, he had already disappeared into the distance. In fact, Murong Yu had entered the Hichu Luo Shu world. No matter where it was, as long as one entered Hichu Luoshu, it was the safest. Without Murong-Yu's trace, those blood fiends immediately became even more violent. One by one, they roared and began to slaughter the others crazily. Because there was only one exit from the blood lake. When more than 10 peerless-grade blood fiends blocked the passage, the experts who were still near the blood lake wanted to cry, but had no tears. Unable to leave this place, unable to escape, they could only fight it out. Therefore, a life-and-death battle broke out. However, although there were many experts in the human race, there were very few peerless-grade experts. Therefore, although they killed many blood fiends in the process, they were all slaughtered in the end. But even after all these people were slaughtered, the blood fiends were still furious. It was because of Murong-Yu and because of the blood crystal that was the size of Small Mountain. That blood crystal was extremely precious even to the blood fiends. In the end, the infuriated blood fiends roared and left the blood lake. They rushed out along the passage, looking for Murong-Yu. The large-scale mobilization of the blood fiends had resulted in even more deaths for the people in the mine. What Murong-Yu didn't know was that the blood fiends' riot that he had unintentionally caused this time was actually, regarding this, Murong-Yu was completely unaware. He was studying the blood crystal in the Hichu Luoshu world. Murong-Yu walked around the blood crystal a few times before asking, "Hichu, do you think this blood crystal is a sacred grade blood crystal?" He couldn't determine the grade of this blood crystal. It's very likely to be a sacred grade blood crystal. Otherwise, it's one of the best among the peerless grade blood crystals. Those blood fiends treated it so seriously. This blood crystal isn't simple. Hichu sized up the blood crystal and said in a deep voice. Murong-Yu nodded and placed his hands on the blood crystal. Thump, thump, thump. Just as he placed his hands on the blood crystal, he felt the blood crystal beating like a huge heart, making rhythmic sounds. It was similar to the sound that he heard at the blood lake. At the same time, an extremely powerful force and evil aura surged out of his body and rushed into Murong-Yu's body through his hands. Whoosh! In an instant, apart from the spiritual space, Murong-Yu's entire body was invaded by the terrifying evil aura. Murong-Yu's heart skipped a beat. At that moment, he realized that his body was being controlled by a force. Murong-Yu suddenly felt that his body was no longer his. His entire body was filled with evil aura and tyrannical aura. He only wanted to kill. Humph! How dare you control my body and my territory? Murong-Yu sneered inwardly. With a thought, he shifted the hill-sized blood crystal away, separating it from his hand that was in contact with it. At the same time, the power of Murong-Yu's 3 godheads erupted at the same time. His strength instantly soared to the peak Archean god realm. The berserk power surged up and was instantly expelled by the baleful aura that invaded his body. In Hichu Luoshu, Murong-Yu's cultivation realm wasn't suppressed. However, although Murong-Yu managed to expel the fiendish aura, he was still shocked. If it wasn't for the fact that he was in Hichu Luoshu, he would have been invaded by the evil aura in the blood crystal and become a mindless monster that only knew how to kill. This is definitely a holy grade blood crystal. However, the evil aura in it is too terrifying. I can't use it at all, Murong-Yu thought to himself. However, why is there a heartbeat in the blood crystal? Also, why would the evil aura control a person's body? It's as if someone is controlling the evil aura to control the body. Murong-Yu frowned and thought to himself. Could it be? Murong-Yu suddenly thought of a possibility. If that's really the case, Murong-Yu instantly broke out in a cold sweat from fright. The deserted world, the blood crystal mine, the blood lake, the fresh blood, the blood crystal. Everything that Murong-Yu encountered confirmed his speculation. However, he wasn't 100% sure about his speculation. Once I'm sure, I'll have to find a way to destroy it. Otherwise, it'll be a disaster for the world. Murong-Yu pondered. He stepped out of the Hichu Luoshu and quickly left the fork. After leaving the fork, Murong-Yu entered another fork. While he was looking for the blood crystals, he had another task. He had to find the end of the blood crystal mine. Only when he reached the end could he verify his speculation. There were battles everywhere. As he went deeper, the people from different tribes started to fight for the blood crystals. Along the way, Muronyu saw quite a few corpses. He also saw quite a few experts fighting each other. Muronyu didn't stop at any place where there were people because there wouldn't be any blood crystals left for him. Muronyu had just rushed into a fork in the road, but he quickly came out. This was because he seemed to have caught a glimpse of someone he knew. In another fork, a woman was surrounded by more than 10 experts who kept attacking her. Her body movement was amazing and her combat skills were powerful. However, it couldn't make up for her low realm and weak body. Although he was still able to resist the attacks of those people for the time being, he was suppressed and had nowhere to run. If this went on, she would be killed sooner or later. Yangqin. Muronyu frowned and his face turned gloomy. The woman who was besieged was rank 10 quasi-saint Yangqin. She was a super expert who came to the deserted world after Muronyu. However, she didn't meet Muronyu again. Chapter 1102. Yangqin's physical body must have been tempered with blood crystals. It had already reached the level of a low-grade divine artifact. However, in the desolate world, a low-grade divine artifact level physical body was just a standard configuration. Apart from a few exceptions, most people had a physical body of this level, just like a god in the divine world. Yangqin's opponents, on the other hand, were a group of superior grade experts. If Yangqin was from the deserted world, there would be no need for so many upper realm cultivators. Any middle realm cultivator would be able to kill her. However, Yangqin was a rank 10 quasi-saint. Although her strength was suppressed to the heaven god realm after entering the desolate world, she did not lose her battle skills, battle experience, and movement techniques. Therefore, she could deal with these people for a long time. However, once her strength was exhausted, it would be the moment of her death. Seeing this, Murongyu's face darkened. He was an extremely protective person. Seeing his own people being bullied, he was already filled with killing intent. Immediately, he walked over in large strides. "You dare to touch my people? You're simply courting death. You're courting death," Muronyu said in a deep voice as he strode over. Hearing this voice, everyone, including Yangqin, was shocked. However, although both sides were shocked, it was the same thing. After those people heard Murongyu's words, they only thought that a powerhouse had come. Therefore, they all looked at Murongyu with vigilance. However, Yangqin was worried and shocked, because she knew Murongyu's strength. When they were outside, Murongyu was only a heavenly emperor. Wouldn't his strength be even weaker here? When she saw Murongyu, she immediately said, "Holy Lord, leave quickly. Don't worry about me. Yangqin, perhaps I'm not your match outside, but in the desolate world, they're just trash. Killing them is as easy as flipping my hand." Before his voice fell, Murongyu's figure flickered and disappeared. The moment Murongyu disappeared, one of the upper stage powerhouses who was besieging Yangqin was suddenly enveloped by an extremely strong aura of death. Immediately, he was shocked and wanted to retreat immediately. However, it was already too late. Boom! After a dull, loud sound, the upper stage powerhouse did not even know what hit him. His entire body had already exploded. The powerful force instantly annihilated his soul. At the same time that this expert was blasted apart by Murongyu's punch, the other expert beside him also felt an intense aura of death. Murongyu took a step forward and came to his side. Then he slapped him. The expert was horrified. When he realized that all his escape routes had been sealed, he immediately roared and gathered all his strength into his fists. His fists soared into the sky, fiercely smashing towards Murongyu's palm that was slapping down. However, how could the upper stage be compared with the absolute stage? With a poof, the man's fist was blasted into powder. However, Murongyu's palm did not stop at all. It was still slapping down rapidly. Poof, poof, poof. After a series of sounds, the upper stage powerhouse's hands were constantly being destroyed. In the end, Muronyu's palm pressed against his body. A terrifying force exploded in an instant. Suddenly, the upper stage powerhouse's entire body was blasted into a cloud of blood mist. In the blink of an eye, 2 experts were killed. "You're all going to die," Muronyu said faintly. Then, he appeared in front of the third person in an instant. The invincible divine fist smashed the opponent's head and soul space before he could react. Bang! 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 Muronyu did not show any mercy. Instead, he unleashed his strongest attack, one punch after another. Yang Qin was stunned. She could only see Muronyu's body flashing continuously. And with every flash, those who were about to kill her would be smashed by Muronyu like sandbags. In just a few breaths' time, those people were all killed. Seeing Muronyu killing the last enemy, Yang Qin could not help but ask in shock, "Holy Master, what realm has your physical body reached?" "Absolute stage," Muronyu said faintly. There was no need for him to hide it. Absolute stage? Yang Qin suddenly felt a little dizzy. How could there be such a high existence? Didn't they say that there were very few absolute stage powerhouses in the deserted world? How could Holy Master reach such a high realm the moment he came here? No, Holy Master had not even been here for half a year. How could he have improved so much? That was because his physical body was already so terrifying when he was in the God world. Sensing Yang Qin's thoughts, Muronyu smiled faintly. "You guessed it right. My physical body had already reached such a level when I was in the God world." After getting Muronyu's confirmation, Yang Qin was even more shocked than before. As a rank 10 quasi-saint, she knew how difficult it was to improve one's physical body realm in the God world. Even for her, before she entered the deserted world, her physical body was not at the level of a low-grade god weapon. In Muronyu was only in the Heavenly Emperor realm, but he had already reached the absolute stage? How heaven-defying was that? Holy Master has always been a heaven-defying existence, a perverted guy. His achievements should still be within the acceptable range. Yang Qin suddenly had this thought. Sensing Yang Qin's fleeting thought, Muronyu's face turned black immediately. There were 2 reasons why he could know what Yang Qin was thinking. One was because he had cultivated the swordsman formula, which allowed him to detect other people's thoughts. Most importantly, Yang Qin was being controlled by Muronyu. If he wanted to, he could read any of Yang Qin's memories. However, everyone had their own privacy. If it was not necessary, Muronyu would definitely not read other people's memories. Because he was almost controlled by someone back then, he knew how sullen and angry that feeling was. "Yang Qin, what's going on? Why are you being attacked by these people?" Yang Qin's face darkened. She muttered to herself as if she was organizing her words. Then she spoke. As it turned out, after Yang Qin followed Muronyu into the deserted world, she appeared in another place. Originally, she wanted to immediately look for Muronyu. However, she suddenly realized that she had turned from a top expert in the God world to an ant in the deserted world. She was unable to accept such a huge change. However, as a rank 10 quasi-saint, her ability to accept things was very strong. She recovered within a few days. She knew that with her current abilities, she could not survive in the deserted world, let alone look for Muronyu. Therefore, she temporarily entered tribe. Similar to Muronyu, Yang Qin also realized that there was a lack of combat skills and cultivation methods in the deserted world. Even the lowest level of combat skills and cultivation methods in the God world were rare treasures in the deserted world. Therefore, she used some ordinary combat skills to exchange for blood crystals. As soon as the blood crystal mine opened, she entered it. Initially, she was with the people in the tribe. However, not long after, they found a mine with a terrifying amount of blood crystals. Just when they thought they had struck gold, they were ambushed and surrounded. In the end, Yang Qin was the only one who escaped. "How dare you? How dare you snatch my things?" Muronyu was furious. He thought that the things that Yang Qin found belonged to him. "Holy Lord, there are hundreds of them. The weakest among them are the superior class experts that you just killed. I think we should just forget about it." Yang Qin thought for a while and advised. It was not that she was afraid of death. In fact, she did not want Murong Yu to be in danger. After all, staying alive was the most important thing. Lead the way. Murong Yu was filled with killing intent. Yang Qin was helpless. After failing to persuade him, she had no choice but to lead the way. Soon, they arrived at a fork in the road. This fork was different from the other forks. The entrance was very dilapidated, as if it had collapsed before. It was also because of this that many people didn't even look at this fork in the road when they passed by it. Naturally, no one realized that there was a rich amount of blood crystals in here. Immediately, Murong Yu and Yang Qin went into the fork in the road. In the beginning, the fork was extremely small. It could only allow 2 people to walk side by side. Compared to the mines outside that were a few miles tall and wide, this fork was just a wormhole. It was no wonder that so many people passed by, but no one looked at it. After walking for several hundred miles, the fork in the road gradually widened. Yang Qin, how did you guys find this fork? If it was someone else other than Yang Qin, Murong Yu would not believe that there was a rich amount of blood crystals in the depths of this fork. If someone had told him that, he might have slapped that person. However, Yang Qin suddenly became shy and stuttered, unable to say anything. In reality, it was just a chance encounter by Yang Qin. Not sure if it was because of this world, but Yang Qin had a woman's physiological reaction after entering this place. In the beginning, she only wanted to come here to solve her problem. However, she was curious about this cave later on. Therefore, she ran all the way and finally found the terrifying amount of blood crystals. Physiological reaction? Murong Yu was a little dizzy. This was because even a cultivator could control his body at will. She no longer had any physiological reactions like the women of the mortal world. Maybe it's because the 2 worlds are different. Murong Yu thought to himself and continued moving forward. Not long after, a burst of noise came from the front. Soon, Murong Yu saw hundreds of people busily collecting the blood crystals around them. Chapter 11:03. Murong Yu's face darkened when he saw that. There were so many blood crystals that they could be found in all directions of the mine. Moreover, these blood crystals were different from the pinky-sized blood crystals that he had seen earlier. The blood crystals here were the size of a fist. Most importantly, in Murong Yu's eyes, those blood crystals were at least of the upper grade. Upper grade, supreme grade, and even peerless grade. Each of them was the size of a fist. The power and killing intent contained in such a large blood crystal was even more terrifying and precious than the blood crystals that were only the size of a pinky finger. At a glance, there were at least a few 100 million blood crystals in the entire mine. Moreover, there were hundreds of people collecting the blood crystals. God knew how many blood crystals they had collected while Yang Qin was being chased. More than 1 billion pieces? Murong Yu was excited when he thought about it. Although he had obtained a divine grade blood crystal that was as big as a small mountain, he could not use it. However, it could only be seen but not used. Although it was precious, it had no value for the time being. However, these blood crystals were different. If he could get all of them, Murong Yu believed that his physical body would improve to the next level and reach the divine grade. Moreover, he could make use of the blood crystals to increase his power of understanding and completely comprehend the 6th level of the chaotic celestial record. Then, his power would increase tremendously and he could break through to the Holy Master level or even reach the quasi-saint level. However, there were hundreds of people here and many of them were supreme grade martial artists. Individually, none of them could withstand a single move from Murong Yu. However, once they attacked, Murong Yu was not confident that he could kill all of them there. Once someone escaped from this place, the blood crystals would definitely be leaked. By then, how many blood crystals would Murong Yu get? Holy Lord, there are so many of them. Do we still have to attack? With our power, we can't keep all of them here, Yang Qin said to Murong Yu in a low voice. Murong Yu nodded. These blood crystals belonged to him. These people had to stay here. However, how could he keep them here? Could it be that we're just going to kill our way in step by step? However, I won't be able to stop all of them if they swarm me. Don't tell me that I have to use the flame of primal chaos in the yin-yang cauldron to burn them down. No, once the flame of primal chaos appears, I'm afraid the entire mine will be melted. When that happens, we won't be able to obtain anything. What's the point of killing them? At this moment, Hichu's voice rang in Murong Yu's ears. Pink death. Pink death. Yes, it's the pink morning. Murong Yu slapped his thigh. The pink death was taught to Murong Yu by that black-bellied Heilong. In the immortal world, Murong Yu had used the pink death to kill many people. However, after ascending to the god realm, he had not used the pink morning sword. One was not suitable, and there was no chance. Now, in this mine, it was the perfect time to use the pink morning sword. Yang Qin, step back. Murong Yu gestured for Yang Qin to step back. Otherwise, if she was also affected by the pink morning sword, it would be a tragedy. Yang Qin obeyed and stepped back. Although she was puzzled, she did not ask any questions. Instead, she looked at Murong Yu in confusion. Under her gaze, streams of light pink aura continuously emanated from Murong Yu's body. Then, under Murong Yu's control, the light pink aura slowly extended towards a mine. The light pink aura was the pink morning sword. Murong Yu was very careful. The pink morning sword was slowly extended close to the ground. Otherwise, once it was discovered, it would be useless. After all, the pink morning sword needed a certain amount of time to activate. However, it did not take long for the pink morning sword to reach the feet of those people. At this moment, the pink morning sword began to dissipate under the cover of the crimson light emitted by the blood crystals. Almost effortlessly, the pink morning drowned all the people in its path. However, those people were completely unaware and continued to collect the blood crystals in full swing. Unknowingly, everyone had been affected by the pink morning sword. What is the Holy Lord doing? Yang Qin was puzzled when she saw Murong Yu's method. This was because she did not see any lethality from the pink morning sword. Murong Yu turned to smile at her and said, "Let's sit back and watch the show." Yang Qin was even more puzzled. She widened her eyes and stared ahead without moving. What's going on? Is this still the volcanic tunnel? Why do I feel hotter and hotter? An upper-class powerhouse suddenly tore off his clothes and asked in confusion, "Why did your body become like this?" When this person tore off his clothes, a lady beside him immediately pointed at his body and exclaimed in shock, "Pink!" Every inch of his skin was pink, including his eyes. When the lady who spoke saw the powerhouse who tore off his clothes, she could not help but exclaim and turn around to retreat. This was because she saw the intense lust in his eyes. Whoosh! However, just as she was retreating, the powerhouse who tore off his clothes had already rushed over and grabbed her with both hands. Then, with a sudden jolt of power, the two men's clothes were torn into pieces. In the next moment, the man pinned the lady to the ground and was about to mount her. What's going on? Everyone was stunned when they saw this scene. However, some of them had already rushed forward and wanted to pull the two of them apart. Don't come over." At this moment, another lady exclaimed. Everyone saw another lady being forcefully pinned to the ground. At this moment, everyone realized that something was wrong. Everyone's hearts were filled with an intense lust. Yang Qin, who was hiding in the distance, could not help but exclaim. She felt that the reason why those people were so shameless and did such things in public must have something to do with Murong Yu. Immediately, she glanced at Murong Yu, but only saw Murong Yu's calm expression. TSK, TSK, TSK. In the mine, the sound of clothes being torn into pieces could be heard. Yang Qin looked over and saw that those people, regardless of whether they were men or women, had already torn their clothes to shreds. All of them were naked. As for the few remaining women, they had already been pressed down on the ground and were being forced to do those lewd things. Yang Qin's face turned red when she saw this. Although she was a rank 10 quasi-saint, she was still very conservative when it came to matters between men and women. She had never tasted forbidden fruit until now. Not only that, some of the men who could not find a woman even pinned another man under their bodies and forcefully entered the so-called asterisk asterisk. Meanwhile, some of the people who were controlled by lust and could not find a target to vent their lust on started to forcefully attack other people to find a target to vent their lust on. There were people dying continuously because under such circumstances, their minds were all muddled. How could they still have the strength to fight normally? Yang Qin's face turned red when she saw this. Holy Lord, what exactly is that pink gas? It's so terrifying? Yang Qin wanted to say perverted, but changed it to horrifying in the end. The pink morning invokes the most primitive lust in every life. Once invaded by the pink morning, if the yin and yang cannot be achieved, the person's soul will explode and he will die. Murong Yu looked at Yang Qin and smiled faintly. Do you want to try it? I can remove it for you. Yang Qin's face was already red. When she heard Murong Yu's words, she covered her face with her hands. She thought that Murong Yu could remove it for her to have yin and yang intercourse with him. However, she didn't know that Murong Yu wasn't talking about that at all. Bang! 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 As they spoke, the souls of the people in front of them began to explode because they could not achieve yin and yang intercourse in time. Powerful cultivators died one after another. Even if their souls did not explode and die, they did not have much fighting power left. These people will all die here, Murong Yu said calmly. He was not a homicidal maniac, but everyone here had black light circling them. They were definitely star-level villains. Murong Yu did not feel the slightest bit of guilt for killing them. As a 10th-level quasi-saint, Yang Qin could not tell that they were all villains. However, she knew that they were not good people from how they had tried to kill them. Therefore, after the initial awkwardness, she sat there with Murong Yu and watched those people either die from their souls exploding or engage in lewd acts. Holy Lord, can two men do that kind of thing also not be removed? Yang Qin could not help but ask when she saw a man's soul explode and die after venting on another man. Do you think two men can achieve yin and yang intercourse? Murong Yu looked at Yang Qin with amusement. Yang Qin's pretty face turned red, and she immediately turned her head away. Secretly, she wanted to slap herself. That question was too stupid. She did not know why she had asked such a stupid question. Half a day later, the souls of the few hundred people had basically exploded. There were not many men left. However, the few women did not die from their souls exploding. The women would not be killed by the men. On the contrary, they had achieved yin and yang intercourse because they had continuously intercourse with others. This had removed the effects of the pink death. It's time for us to make a move, Murong Yu said calmly. Then, he walked out of their hiding place with Yang Qin. When they saw Murong Yu and Yang Qin walk over, the expressions of the few survivors changed. They could not help but retreat. At the same time, they also understood that the reason for their actions was definitely because of Murong Yu and Li Wuyo. Chapter 1104. It's you. When they saw Yang Qin, those who were lucky enough to survive focused their attention on her. Their eyes were filled with hatred and murderous intent. They felt that it was all Yang Qin's fault. If Yang Qin hadn't brought Murong Yu here, they wouldn't have been wiped out. Yang Qin looked at them coldly, her face full of disdain. These people hated her, but did they ever think that they were the ones who asked for it? If they hadn't wanted to attack her, this wouldn't have happened. Kill yourselves, Murong Yu suddenly said. The faces of the remaining dozens of people changed drastically, and then they looked at each other. In the next moment, they stood up and pounced on Murong Yu and Yang Qin. Yang Qin, step back, Murong Yu shouted in disdain. Instead of retreating, he moved forward and threw a punch. Boom! The first expert was smashed into pieces by his punch. He couldn't be more dead. Then, Murong Yu's body swayed. Every time he flashed, there would be an expert who died in his hands, kicked to death, or even smashed into pieces. Although these people had survived the attack of the pink morning, their strength had been weakened. In fact, even if they were in their best condition, they couldn't withstand Murong Yu's attack. After all, Murong Yu was a super expert who was in the unparalleled realm. It was easy for him to kill them. Yang Qin retreated far away and stood guard at the fork in the road behind. His gaze remained fixed on Murong Yu as he began to fight. With her eyesight, of course, she could see Murong Yu's attack. Murong Yu's attacks could be said to be completely random. However, every time he attacked, someone would be killed. This person also knew that there was a huge gap between his strength and Murong Yu's. Therefore, when they attacked Murong Yu, some of them rushed to Yang Qin's side and tried to escape. However, before they could break through Murong Yu's encirclement, they would be killed by Murong Yu's punch. Yang Qin found it strange. Why did these people rush to her side? Wouldn't it be better to go deeper into the fork? While she was puzzled, the battle in front of her had ended. There were hundreds of people. Murong Yu wasn't confident that he could kill all of them alone. Therefore, he used the pink death to kill them. However, dozens of people couldn't break through his attack range. Yang Qin, take all of their storage rings. After killing the last person, Murong Yu stepped out and came to the mine that was filled with fist-sized blood crystals. Yang Qin nodded to start to take their rings. Before Murong Yu's arrival, these people had been collecting blood crystals. Every single one of them had at least a few blood crystals in their storage rings. So many blood crystals. Murong Yu's eyes lit up when he saw the fist-sized blood crystals in all directions. He was overjoyed. However, at the same time, he was puzzled. Since there were so many blood crystals here, why did Gu Kai and the others only have a few? In fact, Murong Yu didn't know that the strongest person in Xiang Village and Gaiyang Village was only an upper grade. Without a stronger powerhouse to lead them, they wouldn't dare to go deep into the blood crystal mine. One of the reasons was that they were worried about getting lost. After all, the blood crystal mine would only be open for a year. If they couldn't leave the mine within a year, they would definitely die. There was another reason that was the most important. With their strength, even if they went deep into the mine and found such a large reserve of blood crystals, they would not obtain the blood crystals, but they would be killed. That was what happened to Yang Qin. Furthermore, people would mistakenly think that she had a large number of blood crystals on her and would be killed. She didn't dare to go deep into the mine, and the outer area had been plundered. Moreover, she was bullied outside. Therefore, it was considered a great harvest for them to obtain more than 100 blood crystals each time. How could they be compared to Murong Yu? Some of the blood crystals were scattered on the ground. However, there weren't many of them left. Most of them had been kept in the storage rings by the people who came before. Therefore, Murong Yu only saw blood crystals embedded on the top, sides, and even the ground. Time was precious. Murong Yu didn't hesitate at all. He immediately stretched out his hand, and a large hand formed from primal chaos energy instantly took shape. Then it grabbed at Lin Yun. Boom, boom, boom. Instantly, he grabbed a large number of blood crystals from the wall and kept them in the Hichu, Luoshu world. However, the power of the grab was only the tip of the iceberg. Without any hesitation, Murong Yu reached out with his other hand. Swoosh, swoosh, whoosh. The huge hand continued to grab out, and countless blood crystals were pulled out and kept into the world of He Tu and Luo Shu. After Yang Qin collected all the storage rings, she joined the army as well. However, the consumption of energy in the wilderness was too terrifying. Every time she grabbed, it consumed a lot of Yang Qin's energy. With Yang Qin's current strength, she could only grab a few hundred times at most. Her energy would be depleted after that. In the end, Yang Qin could only watch as Murong Yu continued to reach out with his hands. Holy Lord, are you able to absorb the qi of heaven and earth here to replenish your energy? Yang Qin couldn't help but be shocked when she saw Murong Yu continuously unleashing his hands without any signs of exhaustion. In reality, all the pores on Murong Yu's body had been closed. There was even a thin layer of energy shield on the surface of his body, isolating him from the qi of heaven and earth in the wilderness. He didn't want the evil energy to invade his body. The reason why he had an endless supply of energy without any possibility of exhaustion was because of the Tree of Life. 3 days later, Murong Yu's location had turned into a huge, spacious mine. It was more than 10 times bigger than before. At this moment, there was not a single blood crystal left. Including the blood crystals that were collected before, there are more than 1 billion blood crystals this time. After throwing the last blood crystal into the Hichu Luoshu world, Murongyu did some calculations and got a rough figure. He then heaved a sigh of relief. These blood crystals were his now. He could only rest assured when they were in his hands. More than 1 billion blood crystals. This can help many of our disciples in Shenzhen improve their cultivation by several levels. Yang Qin was overjoyed. Murongyu shook his head. 8 billion sounds like a lot. But I can guarantee that in those big tribes in the desolate world, their reserves of blood crystals must be measured in trillions. Trillions? Yang Qin was stunned. After giving it some thought, she felt that it was possible. After all, if Murongyu could obtain more than 1 billion blood crystals so easily, how could the large tribes that had been in the wilderness for a long time have a small amount of blood crystals? Using trillions as a unit of measurement was probably an understatement. Holy Lord, are we going to go deeper? Yang Qin asked when she saw Murongyu walking outside. She hurriedly followed after him. Back when Murongyu was collecting the blood crystals, Yang Qin had ventured deep into the mine. However, she discovered that it was a dead end. There are more than 300 days before a year. Why don't we go deeper? Murongyu smiled. He had a feeling that the trip to the blood crystal mine would definitely be fruitful. These blood crystals can not only improve one's physical body level, but they can also improve one's comprehension. If we bring them back to the God realm, I think many people will fight for them. Yang Qin said with a smile. We don't even have enough for ourselves. Why will we fight for them? However, this is a good idea. Murongyu laughed. He was a typical profiteer. However, Yang Qin, did anyone else enter the wilderness after you? Murongyu suddenly thought of this question. I think so. After all, the tunnel is in the middle of a battlefield. Anyone who passes through there will be dragged in. If many people go missing, I believe the humans and monsters will find out soon. When that happens, a large number of people will enter. However, it's easy to enter but difficult to leave. In the wilderness, everyone knew that there were many worlds outside. However, they could only look at them. Even if one reached the peak of the holy heavenly sovereign realm, he could not ascend. The people in the wilderness could not leave. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Murongyu was not worried about whether they could leave. In his opinion, if they could enter, why couldn't they leave? Unless this place was really like the heaven region or even more powerful than the heaven region. In fact, Murongyu did not know that the wilderness was not inferior to the heaven region in some aspects. Murongyu would slowly understand this in the future. Shua. Just as Murongyu took a step out of the fork, a sword ray carrying a frightening aura that could destroy the heavens and earth ruthlessly slashed at his head. Murongyu did not have time to react. He could only instinctively punch out. Boom! Aya! With a loud thud, the person who had ambushed Murongyu was sent flying by Tangwilin. At the same time, a clear female scream was heard. A cold glint flashed through Murongyu's eyes. He took a step forward and appeared in front of the woman he'd sent flying. Without even looking at her, he threw a punch at her. In his dictionary, there was no such thing as having tender feelings for the fair sex. As long as it was his enemy, no matter if it was a man or a woman, he would kill them all. What a joke. Why did women have to be treated differently? Aya! The woman screamed again. Her body swayed, and she actually retreated. Murongyu was stunned. This woman's movement technique was not bad. She actually dodged his attack by a hair's breadth. However, he would definitely not show any mercy. Therefore, he took another step forward and threw another punch at the woman. During this process, he did not even look at the woman. Chapter 1105. Wait a minute, who are you? Why did you attack me? Sensing Murongyu's murderous intent and power, the young lady panicked and could not help but ask. Murongyu stopped in his tracks and looked at the girl with an indifferent expression. However, he couldn't help but laugh in his heart. Who was the one who attacked who? If the young lady did not attack him first, why would he attack her for no reason? There's something wrong with this person's brain. Murong looked at the young lady. However, when he saw the young lady, his eyes flashed with surprise. This girl was about 17 or 18 years old. She had an oval face, long eyelashes, and large eyes. Her skin was fair, and her features were beautiful. Her figure was slender and delicate. At this moment, she was looking at Murong with a somewhat panicked gaze. "Who are you?" The young lady took a few steps back and looked at Murong cautiously. She was afraid that Murong would attack again and kill her. "Who am I? I want to ask you, why did you attack me for no reason?" Murong smiled faintly and took a step forward. However, he felt that the young lady did not mean to kill him. It was just a misunderstanding. At this moment, the young lady was confused, anxious, uneasy, and a little embarrassed. I thought you were the one who wanted to kill me, so I attacked immediately. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." The young lady looked apologetic, and her face was flushed red as she spoke. "I didn't expect Miracle Dr. Situ to be hunted down one day." At this moment, Yang Qin, who had been silent all this while, took a few steps forward and looked at the young lady, who was Situ Xian, with a smile. Situ Xian? Murong frowned slightly. He felt that the name was familiar. However, he could not recall where he had heard it before. Situ Xian was shocked when she heard that. She looked at Yang Qin in shock and took a few steps back. "You know me?" As she spoke, Situ Xian tightened her grip on the Saint Grade God artifact in her hand. She looked like she was ready to attack if anything went wrong. Miracle Dr. Situ Xian of the Green Sun tribe? Who hasn't heard of her? Yang Qin laughed and explained to Murong telepathically. It turned out that Yang Qin had met Situ Xian before entering the crystal mine. However, at that time, Situ Xian was with the experts of the Green Sun tribe. Why was she alone now? Moreover, Murong finally knew where he had heard this name before. In Sunny River Village, when Gukai was seriously injured by Miyang, someone in Sunny River Village had warned him about this so-called genius doctor. However, looking at this young girl, Murong simply could not connect her to the godly doctor. Seeing Murong gaze, Situ Xian seemed to have seen through his inner thoughts. She couldn't help but feel a little angry. "Oomph, do you think I don't look like a miracle doctor?" Murong nodded involuntarily, but soon he felt a little depressed. Even if he thought so, it was too hurtful to say so in front of her face. As expected, Situ Xian was instantly enraged. She glared at Murong and kept sizing him up. She seemed to be considering whether to beat Murong until he was disabled and then heal him back to his original state. In this way, she could prove that she was a miracle doctor. "Miss Situ, where are the warriors of the Green Sun tribe?" Yang Qin asked again when Situ Xian was glaring at Murong. "Oh no, I forgot that someone was chasing me. I'll go first." Before her voice died away, she was about to pass by Murong and rush out of the mine. However, she soon stopped. "Hey, if someone asks you about me, just say you haven't seen me. Or else..." With these words, Situ Xian passed by Murong and Yang Qin, rushed out, and soon disappeared from their sight. This woman, a miracle doctor? She doesn't look like one at all. Murong shook his head and walked forward slowly with Yang Qin. "Holy Lord, you don't look like a miracle doctor either, but you're a miracle doctor with terrifying medical skills. Holy Lord, are you jealous of her?" Yang Qin said with a smile. Murong was stunned for a moment before he started laughing. Why would he be jealous? "Oh, wait for me, you too. I've thought about it. I'll stay in the blood crystal mine and continue to explore. I'll go with you." Murong and Yang Qin had not gone far when Situ Xian's voice came from behind. Then, she quickly came to Murong and Yang Qin's side while they were still in shock. "What's going on?" Murong was about to ask when he suddenly laughed. "Great miracle doctor, you'd better go somewhere else. Don't bring trouble to us, okay?" Situ Xian immediately glared at Murong. "I'm a miracle doctor. If you're hurt, I can treat you immediately. It's your fortune and honor to have me by your side. How can you be so ungrateful? Of course, if you're alone, I'll welcome you with open arms. Although you look very ordinary and your figure is not good, you're still a woman. It's good to look at women when you're free. However, if you want to stay with us, please chase those people away first." As he spoke, Muronyu pointed at the group of people rushing over from behind. "Oh!" Situ Xian exclaimed. Then, she did something that made Muronyu and Yang Qin's jaws drop. She directly rushed to Murongyu's side and grabbed his hand. Then, she looked at Muronyu with an incomparably affectionate gaze. At the same time, she said in a sweet and coquettish voice, "Big brother, it's those people who are chasing after me. You must help me kill them." Muronyu was so shocked that he had goosebumps all over his body. He even had the urge to slap Situ Xian to death. Since when does Situ Xian have a brother? Situ Xian's voice was not only heard by Muronyu and Yang Qin, but also by the dozens of people who were quickly approaching from afar. Immediately, someone asked in confusion, "Idiot, how is this a brother? He's obviously a lover. Haha. What do you think if we take her down in front of that B*TCH's man and F*CK her? How would it feel? That B*TCH is a world-renowned divine doctor. If we F*CK her in front of her man, damn it, I'm burning with desire. Brothers, hurry up and take down all three of them for me." Hearing these people's words, Muronyu and Yang Qin could not help frowning slightly. Situ Xian, on the other hand, was livid with anger. So what if she was a divine doctor? A divine doctor was not without enemies. What's more, they were all from the Golden Feather Tribe, the sworn enemy of the Green Sun Tribe. It was because of the Golden Feather Tribe that all the experts of the Green Sun Tribe were killed, and she was the only one who escaped. But now, they had caught up with her. Why did they rush ahead of her instead? It was because of the intricate and interconnected blood crystal mines. Situ Xian emitted a strong, killing intent, which filled the air with murderous intent. Haha, isn't this B*TCH a divine doctor? Why is she emitting such a strong, killing intent? It seems that her reputation as a divine doctor is undeserved. The people of the Golden Feather Tribe sneered. In fact, they said this on purpose. Situ Xian was famous for her medical skills in the wasteland, at least in the vicinity of the Green Sun Tribe. Because of her, many people and tribes turned to the Green Sun Tribe, which gradually grew stronger and even surpassed the Golden Feather Tribe, which used to be equal. If this continued, the Green Sun Tribe would surpass the Golden Feather Tribe in all aspects. Once that happened, the Golden Feather Tribe would be wiped out from the world. Therefore, the people of the Golden Feather Tribe wanted to kill Situ Xian all the time. As long as she was killed, no one would turn to the Green Sun Tribe in the future. However, Situ Xian usually stayed in the Green Sun Tribe and rarely went out. Even if she went out, many warriors would protect her, which made it difficult for the Golden Feather Tribe to kill her. But this time, Situ Xian unexpectedly appeared in the blood crystal mine. Moreover, the warriors of the Green Sun Tribe who entered the mine this time were not strong. When the warriors of the Golden Feather Tribe found this, they immediately took action. They killed the warriors of the Green Sun Tribe as fast as lightning. But Situ Xian escaped in the end. It was not because Situ Xian was strong. However, a doctor was also a master poison, and so was Situ Xian. She successfully escaped by using many poisons. But how could she have so many poisons with her? Therefore, she ran out of poisons before she met Muronyu, and the people of the Golden Feather Tribe finally caught up with her. Because she had seen how powerful Muronyu was, she had no choice but to return to Murongyu's side, hoping to use Muronyu to temporarily resist the warriors of the Green Sun Tribe. However, after hearing the words of the Green Sun Tribe, even if she had been calm, she was now filled with killing intent. Hey, it seems that she wants to kill us. Brothers, be careful. This bitch is very strong, a warrior of the Green Sun Tribe said with a laugh. The others also laughed in agreement, but their faces were full of disdain. At the same time, as they spoke, they quickly approached. Situ Xian finally could not bear it anymore. She rushed out to fight with them. If she did not fight with all her might, she would definitely die, because with her strength, there was no way she could escape from their pursuit. However, at this moment, a big hand pressed on Situ Xian's shoulder. Chapter 1106. A strong masculine aura rushed over and shrouded Situ Xian. At this moment, Situ Xian's body suddenly stiffened. She sensed that the hand on her shoulder belonged to Murong Yu. This was her first time being so close to a man. Even though she was a miracle doctor, she had never come into contact with a man's body when she was treating a patient, let alone her shoulder. She turned to look at Murong Yu with a stiff expression, only to see Murong Yu's smiling eyes. Are you going to fight them with your supreme level? Situ Xian's strength was not considered weak. She had reached the supreme level, and her movement technique was not bad. Otherwise, she would not have been able to escape even if she had the poison. However, the weakest in the Golden Feather tribe was at the supreme level, and there were even a few supreme level experts. A powerhouse of this level only needed one punch to kill Situ Xian. It was impossible for her to fight with her life on the line. What do you want? Also, take your hand away. Situ Xian felt that her voice seemed to have stiffened. Although you look ordinary and you sneaked an attack on me, I don't think you're a bad person. So I'll help you this time. I can deal with these people. Murong Yu said calmly, his voice full of confidence. I've been waiting for you to say that. Situ Xian muttered in her heart, and her body relaxed. She turned to look at Murong Yu and smiled. What are you waiting for? Take them down. Just injure the man severely. Don't kill him. You know what the two girls are going to do. A supreme level expert from the Golden Feather tribe said coldly. Immediately, those supreme grade powerhouses roared and pounced on him. You're overestimating yourself. Murong Yu shook his head and shielded Yang Qin and Situ Xian behind him. You're the one who's overestimating yourself, little bastard. A supreme level expert rushed to Murong Yu's side and smirked as he threw a punch at Murong Yu's head. Although he had said that he wouldn't kill Murong Yu, from the looks of it, he wanted to kill Murong Yu with a single punch. Die! Murong Yu faintly smiled as he fiercely punched out. Before his opponent's fist could land on his head, he had already landed a punch on his opponent's head. Bang! After a muffled sound, the man's head was blown apart. A terrifying power exploded from Murong Yu's body, along with the opponent's entire body. In the next moment, Murong Yu took a step forward. His figure flickered as he collided with one of the peak stage experts charging at him. The expert did not know that he was about to die, and he smirked Murong Yu's head on. But in the next moment, his entire body and soul were shattered without any warning. After killing that person, Murong Yu's figure disappeared once again. Bang! 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 Every time Murong Yu's body flickered, an expert would be killed by him. Seeing this scene, Situ Xian couldn't help but be stunned. What's the strength of that man? How can he be so terrifying? Situ Xian came to Yang Qin's side and asked in surprise. His name is Murong Yu. His strength has reached the peerless level long ago, Yang Qin explained. She had long been used to Murong Yu's strength, so when she saw this scene, she was not surprised. Peerless level. Situ Xian was stunned. Even in a big tribe like the Green Sun tribe, this level of expert was extremely powerful and had a very high status. His Highness? What is Highness? Situ Xian seemed to have just reacted and could not help asking. Yang Qin just smiled faintly and did not continue to speak. While they were talking, the battle in front of them was about to end. None of the dozens of superiors in the superior realm could withstand even half a move. Only a few of them were killed, and this was because the peerless level experts of the Green Feather tribe reacted and joined the battle. Otherwise, those people would have been dead long ago. Little bastard, which tribe are you from? How dare you go against our Green Feather tribe? You're courting death. 3 peerless level experts surrounded Murong Yu and did not immediately attack. Is her Green Feather tribe very powerful? Murong Yu could not help but be stunned. The Green Feather tribe was indeed very powerful. It was one of the top tribes in the wasteland. Murong Yu really did not know how powerful the Green Feather tribe was. But in the eyes of the 3 experts of the Green Feather tribe, Murong Yu's reaction was just disdain for the Green Feather tribe. He knew, but he pretended not to know. Wasn't this looking down on the Green Feather tribe? Only 3 peerless levels. Seems like the Green Feather tribe is nothing much. Murong glanced at the three of them and said indifferently. However, after hearing Murong words, everyone except Yang Qin could not help but feel that Murong was too arrogant. Was the peerless level 2 common? Even in Green Sun and Green Feather tribes, there are not many of them. This level was not something that could be raised with blood crystals. It also required talent. For example, quasi-saint and heavenly venerables in the divine world. There are so many people in the divine world, but how many of them were quasi-saint? Not to mention quasi-saint, there were not many heavenly venerables. Hearing that, the Green Feather tribe people naturally thought that Murong was looking down on, mocking, and insulting the Green Feather tribe. Therefore, the three peerless levels looked at each other and roared at the same time. They attacked Murong at the same time. Murong faintly smiled as he unleashed a 1,000-army elephant drawing fist. Boom! After an earth-shattering sound, his opponent was immediately sent flying. The peerless level expert drew a beautiful parabola in the void and slammed into the stone wall of the mine. He then slowly fell to the ground. However, the stone wall of the mine was made of some unknown material. The peerless level expert only left a white mark when he slammed into it. Dragon claw kick, cardiac shattering lung. At the same time, Murong sent one of his opponents flying with 1,000 armies elephant drawing fist. At the same time, he also sent out a kick. Instantly, the expert who came from behind did not even have time to react before he was kicked in the chest by Murong. With a crack, this person's entire chest immediately collapsed, and his entire body was sent flying by a huge force. There was only one person left. After sending two people flying at the same time, Murong's move was already over. A look of ecstasy appeared on the face of the third peerless realm super expert. He rushed to Murong's back in a single step and swiftly threw a punch at Su Hao's back. With this person's strength, if he was hit by his punch, even Murong's strong physical body wouldn't be able to withstand it. His entire body would be shattered. However, there was nowhere for him to run now. Aya! Seeing this scene, Situ Xian couldn't help but exclaim. Her face instantly turned pale, and guilt surged in her heart. However, Yang Qin, who was beside her, still had a calm expression, as if she had a card up her sleeve. At least I didn't make a move for nothing. Hearing Situ Xian scream, Murong couldn't help but look at her, but happened to meet her worried gaze. Immediately, he grinned at her. Situ Xian felt like she was about to faint. What was going on? How could he still smile? During this process, Situ Xian had already taken a step forward and was about to rush towards Murong to save Murong. But before she could take the second step, she saw Murong disappear into thin air. He disappeared. At this moment, Situ Xian and the peerless level super expert who attacked Murong were both shocked. While he was shocked, the peerless level expert's heart was also enveloped by an extremely strong aura of death. Immediately, he shot forward, but it was already too late. Boom! A fist the size of a casserole suddenly rushed out of the void, carrying a terrifying aura that could destroy the world. A punch fiercely smashed onto this person's head. An incomparably terrifying power erupted. Situ Xian and the rest could only see the peerless level super expert's body darting forward rapidly, but his head had already exploded. The physical body that rushed out was just a result of inertia. Once the head was destroyed, the soul would naturally be destroyed as well. Rumble, the body without a head, with a dead soul, rushed out for a long distance before finally crashing onto the stone wall of the mine and falling to the ground. Such powerful strength. At least level 8 of the peerless level, right? Situ Xian couldn't help but exclaim. Every realm was further divided into 3, 6, and 9 levels, from the first level to the highest level, the 9th level. It was just like the quasi-saint in the realm of the gods. However, the quasi-saint had level 10, while there were only level 9 in each realm. To be able to defeat these 3 peerless level experts so easily, Murong's strength must be at the peak of the peerless level. Run! Seeing how ferocious Murong was, how would the rest of the Golden Feather tribe dare to stay? Every one of them was terrified as they used their fastest speed to rush out of the mine. If you cut the weeds without removing the roots, they would grow again when the spring breeze blew. Morongyu sneered. His figure flickered as he appeared in front of the group of people. Then, these people seemed to have automatically rushed in front of him to die, and he killed them one by one with a punch. The other two peerless level super experts didn't manage to escape in the end. They were all killed by Morongyu. Woman, what do you mean by level 8 of the peerless level? How many levels are there in each realm? Morongyu came to Situ Xian and asked. He only knew that the wasteland world was divided into 6 realms, but he had never heard of the division of the levels. You're not from this world? Situ Xian reacted instantly. Chapter 1107. Morongyu nodded, and Situ Xian fell silent. Then she circled Morongyu and Yangqin, constantly glancing at Morongyu and Yangqin. Of course, most of her eyes were on Morongyu. After a long time, she said something that made Morongyu and Yangqin's faces darken. People in the outside world are the same as us. There's nothing special about them. Then what do you think is the difference between us? Morongyu said with a dark face. Don't you people in the outside world have a pair of demonic beast faces and 3 heads and 6 arms? Situ Xian frowned and asked. Morongyu and Yangqin staggered and almost fell to the ground. Was this really a question from a miraculous doctor? Why did it feel like only an immature child would ask such a question? You're talking about the demon clan, not the human clan, Morongyu said with a dark face. After a pause, he continued, Tell me how the realms are divided. There are 6 major realms, each of which is divided into 9 levels. That is to say, there are only 50 minor realms in the wasteland. The 9 levels of the divine level are the highest realms in the wasteland. However, according to legend, no one has ever reached this realm. Situ Xian explained. Is there any expert in the Green Sun tribe who has reached the divine level? Are there really few experts at this level? Morongyu asked the second question. Of course. As one of the most powerful tribes in the wasteland, how could there be no expert in the divine level? However, there were very few holy heavenly sovereigns. There were not many holy heavenly sovereigns in the entire desolate world. If you reach the divine level, you can do whatever you want in the wasteland. Situ Xian rolled her eyes and said to Morongyu, So what if I'm invincible in the wasteland? I can't ascend to the holy world, and my home is not here. Morongyu thought helplessly. He then waved his hand at Situ Xian and said, You can go now. Situ Xian was stunned. She looked at Morongyu in disbelief and asked, Are you going to drive me away? Seeing Situ Xian's incredulous look, Morongyu felt a little amused. Do you want me to explain? Situ Xian was instantly enraged. Brat, don't you know who I am? The princess-level task of the Green Sun tribe, Divine Dr. Divine Hands. Do you know how many people have begged me to go on expeditions with them, but I refused? Even if I'm nothing, I'm still a devastatingly beautiful woman. Are you blind? For a long time, no one would refuse Situ Xian. They would only beg and plead with her, because of her identity, her medical skills, and her beauty. However, in front of Morongyu, this method was completely useless. First of all, Morongyu did not belong to this world. He did not need to curry favor with the Green Sun tribe at all. Secondly, Morongyu didn't need a divine doctor by his side. Others did not have any medical skills, and they would inevitably get injured during the expedition. If there was a divine doctor by their side, their life-saving ability would be improved many times. However, in terms of medical skills, how many people could compare with Morongyu? Situ Xian's medical skills might be very shocking, but they were definitely not as good as Morongyu's. Another most important reason was that Morongyu was not fond of women. He would not be fascinated by Situ Xian just because she was devastatingly beautiful. On the contrary, he felt that keeping Situ Xian around would cause a lot of trouble. After all, the Green Sun tribe was not the only enemy of the Green Sun tribe. Other hostile tribes would definitely attack Situ Xian when they saw her. And Morongyu and Situ Xian would be regarded as members of the Green Sun tribe. I'm not blind, but you can really go now. Muronyu turned to look at Situ Xian seriously, and then said with a serious face. Situ Xian glared at Muronyu. She really did not understand whether Muronyu was a man or not. Was he not a gentleman at all? Muronyu, do you have the heart to see such a beautiful woman like me alone in this blood crystal mine? What if I get bullied? After being angry for a while, Situ Xian immediately looked at Muronyu with a pitiful face. It's none of my business. Yangqin, let's go. Muronyu glared at Situ Xian, then called Yangqin and left directly. Bastard! Situ Xian looked at Murongyu's back and kept cursing in a low voice. Then, she rolled her eyes, and in a flash, she had already chased after Muronyu. Why are you chasing me? Muronyu frowned slightly. That's funny. Why would I chase after you? I just want to go inside. Situ Xian looked at Muronyu with a smug face, as if she was trying to show off. Muronyu immediately stopped. Since that's the case, you can go first. Situ Xian's face changed slightly, and she suddenly covered her stomach with a painful expression. Ouch, my stomach hurts. I'll take a rest first. This woman is so shameless. Muronyu's face darkened, and he felt very helpless. However, while Situ Xian was talking, Muronyu went on his way again. Seeing this, Situ Xian immediately followed. Great magic doctor, don't you have a stomachache? Why don't you continue to rest? Humph, don't you know I'm a great magic doctor? A stomachache is not a problem for me. I'm fine now. Situ Xian smiled proudly. Situ Xian continued to follow Muronyu, no matter what method she used or how shameless she was. This woman was not stupid, and she knew that she would be much safer if she followed Muronyu, a super expert. Okay, you can stay with us, but you must listen to me. Otherwise, I won't care about your life or death. Seeing Situ Xian persevering by their side, Muronyu had no choice but to agree in the end. Situ Xian's face immediately lit up with joy. But, however, before she could finish rejoicing, Muronyu continued. Before that, you have to tell me, what are you doing in the blood crystal mine? Of course I'm looking for blood crystals. Otherwise, why would I come here? Situ Xian blurted out without any hesitation. A cold smile flashed across Muronyu's face. You can leave now. Okay, I'm looking for a magic medicine. Situ Xian hesitated for a moment, but in order not to be driven away, she still told him her purpose. However, she did not make it clear. Make it clear? Muronyu frowned slightly. Do I really have to say it? Situ Xian looked at Muronyu hesitantly, because she knew how shocking the magic medicine she was looking for was. If Muronyu were to find out about this, would he silence me? For a moment, Situ Xian was hesitant. If she told him, Muronyu might kill her. However, if she did not tell him, she might not be able to get the magic medicine with her current strength. However, that godly medicine was simply too shocking. Even the people around her had not been told about it. Therefore, even people from the Green Sun tribe might plot against her. After all, it was a legendary magic medicine that could make a person a sage. Forget it. Let's try our luck. After pondering for a long time, Situ Xian finally made up her mind. Then she looked at Muronyu and said with a solemn face, Can you set up a few inhibition formations? What I'm going to say is too shocking. If it gets out, I'm afraid it will trigger a war between the tribes in the wasteland world. Muronyu nodded, and then he sent Situ Xian and Situ Xian into the Hichu Luoshu world. This is my treasure space. You can say it here. It won't leak out. Situ Xian nodded first, and then said with a solemn face, What I'm looking for is not a magic medicine, but a holy medicine. According to legend, as long as you take the holy medicine, you can become a sage. Muronyu laughed and looked at Situ Xian indifferently. Do you know how difficult it is to become a sage? How can there be such a holy medicine in the world? He did not believe it. Moreover, so what if he became a sage? Most likely, before they could ascend to the holy world, they would be slapped to smithereens by the experts of the holy race. I'm telling the truth. Before the Archean era, someone took the holy medicine and became a sage. Seeing that Murong did not believe her, Situ Xian, who was originally afraid that Murong would kill her because of this, became anxious and hurriedly said, "Miss Situ, how can becoming a sage be so easy?" She was a rank 10 quasi-saint, and she knew better than anyone how difficult it was to take the last step. That holy medicine is called the blood crystal flower. As long as you take the blood crystal flower, you can become a sage. This is recorded in the history books, and this period of time is when the blood crystal flower will appear. However, no matter how serious Situ Xian's words were, Murong Yu and Situ Xian would not believe her. Situ Xian was depressed. If Murong Yu and Situ Xian did not believe her, how could they help her obtain the blood crystal flower? Therefore, she had to convince Murong Yu and Situ Xian that she was telling the truth. "All right, you don't have to say anymore. You're with us. I have to enter the depths of the blood crystal mine. If the blood crystal flower really appears, I will help you. However, don't expect me to risk my life." Situ Xian was overjoyed. The blood crystal flower is also in the depths of the blood crystal mine. It's on the way. She was originally afraid that Murong Yu would refuse, but since it was on the way, she did not bother to explain. The facts were the best proof. If they really saw the blood crystal flower, Murong Yu would have to believe her even if he did not. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Murong Yu glanced at Situ Xian indifferently. Then, the three of them left Hichu Luoshu and continued forward. When you see the blood crystal flower, don't fight with me for it." Situ Xian glared at Murong Yu and muttered in her heart, "You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.